Again, testing just to make sure staff can still. So Dana.
I can, so I'll be.
We haven't started yet. We're just waiting for the cable feed to start. Madam Mayor, we're ready.
Thank you all for everyone's patience. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, June 16th meeting of the City Council. I wanted to call the meeting to order. Let's start with roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes. Ms. Conley?
Here.
Ms. Downs?
Here.
Ms. Flynn? Oh, Ms. Flynn is absent. Ms. Shantz-Hiscod?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Ms. Underhill?
Here.
And Mayor Hardy?
Here.
Thank you.
And Mr. Snyder is joining remotely tonight. Do we have a motion for electronic participation, please?
Yes. Mr. Snyder, could you please identify your remote location and reason for participation by electronic means?
Yes, I am at home for medical reasons following oral surgery, which may affect my speech tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I move that the City Council approve electronic participation by Councilmember Snyder in this meeting for medical reasons pursuant to the City Council's adopted policy.
We have a second.
Second.
It's Connolly in the second. And call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscod?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill,
Yes.
and Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Great. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Speedy recovery.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And do we have a motion to adopt tonight's meeting agenda? Any amendments?
I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Downs on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting agenda is adopted. Let's move on to our proclamations and special presentations tonight. We've got a number of folks in the audience. First up, we have recognition of our Operation Earthwatch students. I think we always look forward to this annual celebration. So we welcome the Operation Earthwatch volunteers and all the students to come join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sylvia Witt, and I'm a rising senior at Meridian High School, and I am the Meridian representative for Operation Earthwatch. And I'll be speaking tonight on behalf of the program and sharing all the amazing things that we've done this year. So 14 students completed all 6 months of environmental action activities in this year's Operation Earthwatch program, which is collectively over 200 activities. Unfortunately, many are attending camps or on family vacations and could not make it tonight, but we do have a lot of members here tonight. All 14 submitted creative and visually engaging designs that contributed to the annual t-shirt contest, reflected this year's Four Seasons theme. You can see we're all wearing. And 3 students from Oak Street Elementary, Weston Ho, Nikhil Kapadia, and Olivia Whitley, one student from St. James School, Harrison Height, have been active in the program since kindergarten, marking 6 consecutive years of participation. In recognition of their outstanding commitment, each received a framed certificate of their names engraved on the Operation Earthwatch Lifers plaque, which will now be housed here in the City Hall Department of Community Planning, thanks to Mr. Kurt Lawrence, our liaison and the city's environmental planner. And also thank you to our parent and teacher volunteers, Miss Paula Conrad, Miss Connie Rydberg, Miss Elizabeth Ballard, and Miss Tina Ho. And special thank you to our sponsors, Bikenetic Full Service Bicycle Shop, Falls Church Annandale Lions Club, Falls Church Foot and Ankle Center, Falls Church Garden Club, Greener for Good, June Rhee Taekwondo, Village Preservation and Improvement Society, and Miss Ellen Gilmore, treasurer, who manages our program funds, as well as Vibe Energy. And for me, this is my second year as the Meridian High School representative, where I help to create activity sheets, lead monthly meetups, and reach out to the high school as needed. And, for me, I used to participate in this program in elementary school, so it's really fun to be on the other side of the program, managing and really giving back to the program that sparked my interest in the environment at such a young age. So that's been a really awesome opportunity. And some of my favorite activities that we've done are making mini terrariums. We've made our own paper. We've simulated an oil spill, and we even wrote letters to Congressman Don Beyer. And I'm also excited to apply the skills that I've learned with Operation Earthwatch to an internship I'm doing this summer on Capitol Hill. And so I've just learned a lot about communication and reaching out to the community, as well as project management. And so I'm really excited to apply those to my internship, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work with Operation Earthwatch. All right, thank you.
We'd love to hear from anyone else. If not, come up. Great. Congrats to all the students. We love this year that you had a student actually talk about the program. I think that was a great
Just, let's go up here and. We need all the t-shirts. You're coming up here for. Now we need adults,
all right.
yes. We have to have this for history.
All right.
Love your shirt. It's perfect for tonight. Love your shirt too.
All right.
Congratulations to all. Next up, we have a memorial resolution honoring Representative Jerry Connolly, and Vice Mayor Hiscott will do the honors.
Thank you. Whereas the City of Falls Church mourns the death of the Honorable Gerald E. Connolly on May 21st, 2025, and whereas Congressman Connolly was a faithful public servant elected by his fellow residents to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives for the Virginia's 11th Congressional District from 2009 to 2025, and whereas Jerry Connolly was a fearless advocate for progress as chair of Fairfax County Board of Supervisors from 2003 to 2009, and board member representing the Providence District from 1995 to 2003. And whereas examples of how his leadership helped shape our region include the extension of the Silver Line to Dulles Airport, the revitalization of Tyson's Corner as a more walkable and livable destination, the creation of the Mosaic District, the Cross County Trail from Great Falls to Occoquan, the Fairfax County Plan to end homelessness, and sustained support for affordable housing. And whereas Jerry Connolly was a champion for federal workers and for democracy and government transparency as ranking member of the House's Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And whereas Jerry Connolly was a respected global leader for human rights and an advocate for collaboration and cooperation across the national and international stage. And whereas Congressman Connolly served the country and the community with tremendous energy, intelligence, and hard work, and his immense contributions to the City of Falls Church, the Northern Virginia region, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the nation are deeply appreciated and honored.
Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Falls Church, Virginia recognizes with admiration the contributions of the Honorable Gerald E. Connolly over the course of his life and career, mourns his passing, and offers its sincere condolences to his family, his Mantua neighbors, his colleagues in public service, and his many friends. We could end with a moment of silence. Thank you. I know many people in the region had gone to his memorial service 2 weeks ago, and so we appreciate what a leader he was for the region and a friend of Falls Church as well. Okay, third up, we have recognition for Peter Noonan on his departure from Falls Church City Public Schools. It's on a happier note. And Ms. Connolly will do the honors.
Thanks, Mayor Hardy. This is in recognition of Superintendent Peter Noonan for his outstanding leadership of the Falls Church City Public Schools. It is with great appreciation and deep respect that the Falls Church City Council recognizes the leadership and achievements of Dr. Peter Noonan over 8 eventful years of service as superintendent of the Falls Church City Public Schools. The City Council is particularly thankful to Dr. Noonan for his work in improving school facilities. In his first year as superintendent, Dr. Noonan and his team renovated and expanded Mount Daniel Elementary School. With that success, Falls Church shifted to the biggest capital project in the city's history, the design and construction of a new high school. The high school project required extensive collaboration between FCCPS and all facets of the city government. Dr. Noonan was exactly the right leader on the FCCPS side of the project and was always an effective and reliable partner for the city council and general government in this complex undertaking. The spring of 2020 brought a global pandemic, and with it, the tremendous challenge of meeting the educational needs of young people while protecting students, teachers, and community members from the spread of virus. Dr. Noonan's steady, communicative, and collaborative approach helped the school system pivot quickly to remote learning, and later, following the advice of public health experts, FCCPS was among the first schools in Virginia to welcome students back into the classroom. Dr. Noonan worked closely with the city manager to develop principles of revenue sharing in the annual budget development process, which have been followed for the past 7 years, bringing greater predictability and planning for both the schools and general government. Dr. Noonan has been a strong and effective leader for the Falls Church City Public Schools, and at the same time, an advocate for the one city approach, where the schools and general government work together for solutions that serve the entire community. Earlier this year, Dr. Noonan announced his retirement in June 2025. As he leaves this leadership role with the Falls Church City Public Schools, the City Council is pleased to declare that he leaves the city better than he found it. We wish Dr. Noonan the best in his future endeavors, and we thank him for his enthusiastic and energetic leadership and for the lasting impact that his hard work will have on the city of Falls Church.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hardy, members of the council. What a privilege to be here tonight. And I've said this before, and I'll just say it again. If it wasn't for the great partnerships between the schools and the general government and the city council and the school board, we wouldn't be here tonight celebrating the retirement of me. I think I would have been gone a long time ago. But because of that great partnership, and because of the collaborative practices, and it's been a thrill to be here. I want to take just a second to thank my partner, Wyatt Shields, city manager. Wyatt and I worked very closely together for many, many years. And I think one of the hardest things about thinking about retiring and moving away from the work is the people that you leave behind. And the friendships, and I appreciate your friendship and I appreciate your partnership a lot, Wyatt, and look forward to continuing that into retirement. We aren't going to leave the city. My family's here tonight, at least some of them, with Betsy. Betsy is a rising 11th grader at Meridian High School, and so we're excited to see her all the way through high school, and my partner Bethany Latique as well. So I'll just end with kind of where I began many, many years ago, and that is that I feel like I've died and gone to superintendent heaven. I ended up in a really great place, and I've had a great opportunity to work with so many great leaders like yourselves in multiple capacities, many of you, and just feel very fortunate and very privileged to have had an opportunity to work in Falls Church, and look forward to great things to come. You're a great leadership group, and the city's on a good path. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
I think we all want to say something, Peter, so you don't get to go quite yet. Pretend it's like a budget presentation. I'll start with Wyatt.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And Peter, it has been, I think, in my career, one of the great pleasures that I will always think back on is working with you and all the things that we were able to do together. Some of the things that we have been able to do together as a team require just tons of early morning meetings, Sunday meetings, late night meetings. So we also, I think, should thank Bethany, Betsy, Brylan, the entire Noonan family for letting Peter have so much time with all of us, having fun, doing big things. But that's a tremendous sacrifice, I know, for the home front and so much time on these big projects. And the other thing I'll just note, there were a lot of these projects were very complex and required a lot of negotiation. And some of them were pretty tense. I can recall Peter at one point during the high school project basically saying, you know what, we're done. We've given enough easements. The school board, we're tapping out. We're not going to give up any more easements. And And in good humor, I think we probably had to execute about 15 or 20 more easements after that declaration, including the final, I think, gas line easement that's going right up Mustang Alley for the senior building. But Peter always leavened those moments with humor and an idea of what the big picture is, what we're trying to get done, and constantly ribbing Hoffman about their retail program and what the grocer was going to be, and getting people to laugh during some of these tough, difficult meetings was also a great benefit for everybody. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, comments up here. We'll start from left to right. Ms. Downs.
Dr. Newman, well, I want to thank, I'm in an interesting position having worked with both you gentlemen, and I have to say it's sort of, I always felt our secret weapon, the relationship you two had, because I felt like on both sides, I'd say, Peter, call Wyatt, Wyatt, call Peter, so it's phenomenal to have you to have such a great working relationship. And, Dr. Noonan, serving on the school board and as school board chair, we had the high school, we had COVID, we renamed 2 schools. So it's been a lot. I tell people it's like dog years. It was a 4-year term for me, but it was really 8 years because of COVID and the school renames. But, so much of it was just a complete honor to work with you. And as the resolution says, we got back before all those other schools got back. And, the school renamings, though it was challenging at the time and not, the community was not fully behind us, I think it was the right thing that we did that, and to continue to watch you really grow the school system. And you have, as I've said many times, you're leaving it in a much better place than you found it. So thank you so much for your good work.
Thank you. I remember sitting on an interview panel a few years back. I had the good fortune of being one of the community representatives when interviewing Dr. Noonan, and I remember your focus that day on how much you cared about people. You cared about students, you cared about staff, you cared about the families of both of those groups of people and the community. And you continue to do that from the interview process through today, and I know you'll continue as long as you live in the City of Falls Church. You also talked about your family during the interview process, and I just absolutely loved that. You had them at front and center of your world then, and and you continue to this day, and they're here tonight to celebrate you and alongside all of the successes along the way. So I think those 2 things were really notable at the time, and they just haven't changed. They've only grown stronger. Thank you for being such a great partner with the Falls Church Education Foundation. I had an opportunity to spend, 6 years or so working with you on that, really developing it into what is now, I think, just part of a part of the community that people don't even think about anymore, but it took a lot of leadership, it took a lot of partnership and collaboration for you to trust me and the Education Foundation to deliver what was needed for the community, whether that was the Family Assistance Fund or things that we really grew over time. So I thank you for your partnership and your leadership, and I'm glad you're not leaving the city so that we don't really have to say goodbye. Thank you.
Connolly.
Some of you may know that when there's a big vote on city council or something big, I wear my zipper earrings. So I wore my zipper earrings tonight because for exactly what Wyatt said, it's just very important. The work that you've done as superintendent has been so important to reach across to the general government and build that relationship and make our city a better place. So thank you for your 8 years of doing that, day in and day out. And I know you've put so much time and thought into it, and it's really appreciated.
Underhill.
Every single person up here, and as well as including you, was serving during COVID, during the school redevelopment. And so in some ways, I feel like I just kind of showed up and I'm getting to reap all the rewards when you guys had to go through all of this, like these meetings. And so when I was going door to door, I was actually learning about the community. There were people here that were telling me about, the wonderful things with the schools and also things I knew, but also things I didn't. And one of the things that came up was there were some people who said, Peter Noonan absolutely was instrumental in the whole school redevelopment. Like this was like, we wouldn't have been so successful without you. So I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants and you are one of those giants. So thank you for your leadership. I know you have many, many more things to contribute to the education community. So I look forward to seeing where you go on your next journey.
Mr. Snyder, you have your hands up?
Yes, thank you. So Falls Church was created for our schools, and we created some of the best in the United States, and my appreciation to Peter Noonan for maintaining that quality. The school system that he inherited was one of the best in the United States, and he maintained that and carried it forward. So thank you very much for that.
Well, to wrap up, you really have left a lasting mark on not only the schools, but the community. One thing that I personally admired a lot about you, Peter, is in a community with very engaged parents and very opinionated electeds, and some of us wear both hats, you've always handled the input with grace. And so I really admire that about you. So thank you. On behalf of a really grateful city, thank you for all your contributions and your service. And we wish you the best in the next chapter.
Thank you, Mayor Hardy. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Would you like to come up for a photo as well?
Love to. Thank you.
I'll come in. Well, let's get a family picture first. Move them. Move them out.
Next, we have a proclamation declaring July 2025 as Disability Pride Month in the City of Falls Church. And Ms. Underhill will read the proclamation.
Whereas on July 26, 1990, the United States Congress enacted the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, in a comprehensive declaration of equality for people with disabilities that protects millions of Americans from discrimination. And whereas Disability Pride Month coincides with the anniversary of the ADA's passage and builds on the celebration of the law by recognizing something just as important, the movement by disabled people for disabled people to increase visibility and uplift the lived experiences and contributions of the disabled community. And whereas Disability Pride empowers those with disabilities to define their own identity, breaks down stigma and stereotypes of those with disabilities, and serves as a tool to tackle the ableism that persists to this day. And whereas disability comes in many forms, physical, mental, sensory, and invisible or undiagnosed, and therefore results in many different lived experiences, perspectives, and accessibility needs. And whereas Disability Pride Month encourages us to acknowledge the diversity and nuances of issues within the disabled community to better understand and address continuing discrimination and inequality together. And whereas the City of Falls Church is committed to building a community that acknowledges, welcomes, and supports disabilities and strives to provide disability equity. And whereas the City Council and staff recognize that addressing accessibility in the community, in transportation, engagement, government services, and more, will actively help reach the city's 2040 vision of being a vibrant, walkable, safe, small city that keeps pace with the regional growth while strengthening our identity as a special place.
Now, therefore, I, Letty Hardy, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2025 as Disability Pride Month in the City of Falls Church, and urge all to respect and honor our diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance.
Thank you. And we will have a Disability Pride flag raising on July 2nd at 10 a.m. in front of City Hall on our flagpoles.
And Mayor, if I could just take a quick note that honor of the point of your proclamation about working to make sure that we're an inclusive community, the city is currently updating our ADA transition plan, which will be updated and presented late summer, fall. But we currently have a community survey out starting Friday through June 27th, where we encourage all persons with or without disabilities to please make sure we know what the issues are. And so that is on the city's website, and also will be in this week's focus, and there was some social media this past weekend. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, and last up, we have a proclamation declaring July 2025 as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Falls Church. And Ms. Downs will do the honors.
Thank you, Mayor Hardy. Whereas parks and recreation are an integral part of communities throughout the country, including the City of Falls Church, where parks are located throughout the city for easy access to all, and the Recreation Parks Department provides access to classes and activities for people of all ages. And whereas parks and recreation encourage physical well-being by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, playgrounds, and additional activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas time spent in nature positively impacts mental well-being by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviate illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's disease. And whereas strong communities and social belonging are built by creating opportunities for connection with others through shared interests in recreational activities. And whereas the Recreation and Parks Department is a leading provider of programming for older adults, providing community through social interactions and recreational activities for a vulnerable population. And whereas recreation and parks programming and education activities such as summer camp, youth sports, and enrichment activities are critical to childhood development. And whereas parks and recreation elevate a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Falls Church Park serves as the home to thousands of trees, helping to maintain the city's status as a Tree City, USA, cultivating ecological beauty and preserving local environmental well-being. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Falls Church recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources.
Now, therefore, I, Letty Hardy, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim July 2025 as Parks and Recreation Month. I encourage all to take advantage of the excellent parks, programs, and amenities in the City of Falls Church, Virginia. Is anyone here from staff? Also, I want to take a note to thank and congratulate our Rec and Park staff for having been out of the community center for 6 months while we did the geothermal upgrade, and appreciate their work in quickly moving back in. So congrats to all on that. Okay, I think that's it for special proclamations tonight. Let's move on to oaths of office. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone in the audience here to take an oath?
We don't. We are all caught up on our oaths until after you make some more appointments.
Great. Well, let's move on to public comment then. Let's start with a summary of written comments.
Yes, thank you. These are the comments received since your last regular meeting in writing. The following wrote in opposition and with concerns about a rezoning application for properties on Lee Street. And Paloma Benito and Edward Rotho wrote for their neighbors. And you received a list of everybody who signed on to that. Mark Gross at 303 Lincoln Avenue also wrote with concerns, as did Ellen Heather. Regarding solid waste collection fee, Chris Just of 814 Park Avenue wrote with concerns about the fee and suggestions for provision of solid waste services. On other topics, the CATT provided comments on the intersection of Northwest Street and Park Avenue. Paul Flush of 206 Southwest Street wrote with concerns about construction at Founders Row. Mark Gross of 303 Lincoln Avenue passed on a question he received about community garden in the city. Carol Mallory of 309 West Street asked for consideration of banning gas-powered leaf mowers. Andrew Olison provided neighborhood comments regarding the greening of Lincoln Avenue project. Bike Falls Church, Washington Area Bicyclist Association, Fairfax Advocates for Better Bicycling, and Fairfax Families for Safe Streets submitted comments on the Shreve Road Shared Use Path and Haycock Road Route 7 intersection projects. Kate Skalka wrote in opposition to adding mixed-use areas to Broad Street, and the following wrote to request more bike and pedestrian safety improvements in the city. Anne Marie Havid of 805 Hillwood Avenue and Daniel Sotolino of 944 North Casada Street.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to receipt of public comment. Do we have any in person or virtual?
We have two in person. Jean Gresco is first, followed by Nick Benton. Probably don't have to remind you, we have a 3-minute comment period. But I'll do it anyway. Thank
Welcome.
you.
I'm Gene Gresco, and I live on North Fairfax Street. Regarding last meeting's presentation of the proposed rezoning of 2 South Lee Street lots, our planning staff did an excellent job explaining how this proposed change is contrary to the letter of the rezoning laws as well as the spirit of the laws. The developer, by contrast, showed a marketing pitch that glossed over the planning staff objections. They showed a picture of the project from the street, but not how a wall of townhouses would look from the backyard of 110 South Lee. They claimed how current residents in single-family homes might downsize to these townhouses. They didn't indicate how these people would come with their 2 to 3 cars that would overflow onto the already crowded street. There are so many other objections beyond parking, but the real issue is the implied assumption that a prospective home buyer would review an obscure planning map on potential zoning changes versus buying based on the current zoning of the established neighborhood. A home buyer must research to find a house, negotiate terms, secure financing, schedule a home inspection, property survey, and movers. But before doing all that, the assumption that the buyer must first know of potential zoning changes to a long-established single-family neighborhood is absurd. As Councilmember Snyder said, approving this would open the floodgates for other developers to maximize their profits by destroying residential neighborhoods we love. Given the report by the planning staff, I request that a motion be made to stop this rezoning proposal now. Thank you.
Next, we have Nick Benton.
Talked about a lot, hasn't been a lot of very specific data, but the number of layoffs, people working for the federal government or government contractors is already creating a devastating effect on our city and the entire region. That's an estimation. I drafted a proposal that I published in my newspaper this last week about how we can work to mitigate the effects of this very serious downturn. It's already reflected in sales taxes, meals taxes, and everything else. It's a very dramatic fact. I am coming to you tonight offering to meet with you. I want to sit down and talk about how I have worked over 36 years to create an institution that can address this problem for the City of Falls Church, and maybe even for the wider region as well. Guided in the notion of News Press's capability as a respected participant, but virtually only remaining print newspaper in all of Northern Virginia, that we can, by expanding our distribution, joining strategic areas in the 5 zip codes around the City of Falls Church, where there's $14 billion a year in disposable income, back the people to the very excellent restaurants, entertainment, and infrastructure that we worked so hard to develop for the last 36 years. And I hate to see the number of restaurants that are going to fail because of the precipitous drop-off in their efforts that we've already begun to see. And I'm dedicated to doing everything I can with my newspaper to try to alleviate and counter this problem by attracting people to the City of Falls Church. So not only the restaurants, the entertainment, the infrastructure, and everything else that has supported the schools so well for the last 36 years, but, you know, just the idea of Falls Church in general, getting the news, learning about our fine community. I think we can make a difference. I think we really could, and I really want to have this conversation with 1 of you, 2 of you, 5 of you, 7 of you, to make this happen. You can't sit back and just say, well, oh, what are we going to do about this problem? It's clear that you do this, you address this problem by bringing more people in here to spend their dollars here, to enjoy this community here, to uplift and build it. We have so many fine restaurants, other venues in the city now. It would be a terrible shame to see them go under simply because we didn't make the maximum effort to bring more in.
Thank you, Mr. Benton. I think I can speak for all of us that we certainly appreciate all the contributions. I think I can speak for all of us that we certainly appreciate all the contributions of the news press to this community and how special it is that we have a community paper.
Well, we can do more. We can do a lot more.
Do we have other speakers for tonight?
No, nobody else has signed up. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're moving on to 2 annual reports, and then we'll probably have time for public council requests, which will probably address some of these things. Let's start with the annual report of the CACT. Welcome, Mr. Reagan.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm here to deliver a delayed annual report for 2024. I'm happy to get on here and tell you what we've been up to. So, I turned it on. The light's on.
Yeah.
Oh, I hear it. I think it's just soft. So, speaking here. How's that? Is that better? There we go. Okay. Next slide. Quick overview of who's on the CACT. We're currently at 7 members. I'm going to talk about the membership in a moment. I'd like to thank the people from staff and our representatives for all their efforts, especially our student representative, Millie Jo Boudry. Jenna, who's our staff liaison, Franjo, Councilman Snyder as our city council liaison, and Andrea as our plan commission liaison. They've all put in fantastic effort. Probably the biggest thing that affected the CACT last year was an instability in the membership. Next slide. It started at the beginning of the year with the vice chair not seeking reappointment. The chair ran into work difficulties, missed quite a few meetings before finally resigning. And then we had another member who moved out of the area. We also had members who had commitments outside of the city that they needed to take care of, related to the passing of a sibling and needing to take care of the estate, and missed several meetings because of that. This then, we ended up with a new chair, new vice chair, 3 new members. When we reached October, it took until October to really get back up to full staff or full attendance. I think we're in a very stable place now since then. However, as soon as we got up to full membership, staff had some key turnovers happen. Zach left and Paul left, so they are both key to the CACT and the work we do. So with Amanda coming on board, Mark coming on board, hopefully all of that is going to be behind us. The main thing we've done, or one of the major items, next slide, has been around the citizen feedback and providing that to multiple programs, policies, developments. Quite a few of those went over last year. But probably the biggest thing I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and next 2 slides, is the NTC program. And I want to give you a heads up, insight into how many programs. Next one. So in 2024, we had 2 programs completed. North Roosevelt would have been completed, except there were some delays in acquisition of the radar speed cameras or speed signs. So that slipped into 2025 as well. And we do have a lot of projects underway. There's a couple of them I want to call out because they have interesting aspects to them. Next slide. Columbia was frustrating for several reasons because we ended up with one resident who managed to basically not like the speed hump sign in their front yard. The speed bump she was fine with, the sign in front of her house, and she was able to rally the neighbors into not wanting to go against her. So after a lot of work, the speed humps did not go in. The light solutions went in. I will say, anecdotally, what I've been hearing is those flexi posts that were installed on Columbia have been effective. We have been seeing more stable traffic. We don't see the 70-mile-an-hour driver going through there anymore. And so I want to point that out because this is one of the first examples where we can point at the flexi posts and say, they work. Next one I wanted to show you, talk about real quickly is Noland. This is a positive example where city put in light solutions, paint and signs. They did not work. The residents came back and requested more. Staff listened, NTC program listened, and this has been moving forward. We're looking at speed humps being installed later this year on Noland. Next one. And then we have Fowler, which is highlighting another example where you have low traffic levels, but you have also residents who have fed directly into the NTC looking for speed humps. But they have come back and said, no, we don't want the recommendation of staff. We don't want flexi posts that do work to slow down the traffic. It is the traffic data does show this as a low volume. So we're getting into this scenario where you have specific individuals who mean well, but are driving the entire process and resulting in some of the delays. Just wanted to highlight that. Last year we presented a transportation dashboard. Unfortunately, I still don't have that quite ready for you yet. There's some questions about stuff, and if we move on, but there are a few things that have come out of it that I do want to highlight that are very interesting. Our goal for 2030, by the way, for bus frequency on Broad Street was to have every 15 minutes. Well, the Better Bus Initiative, F20, is a 12-minute bus. So we're going to take credit, even though we did nothing. But that goal has been exceeded, and we're going to have a 12-minute bus on Broad Street end of the month. But at the same time, Metro and bus ridership increased 48%. So something is working here. Something's definitely working. Interesting one that we're trying to get feedback on is traffic citations increased by 86%, but it's not clear whether that's because we've got more bad drivers or we're seeing more law enforcement, and they're doing a really good job of ticketing people. The next one, is that a correlation or is it not? That bike and pedestrian injuries returned to the 2022 level from a really bad 2023. Is that because of, is there a correlation there? We don't know. These are the things that we're looking into, but if there is a correlation there, that's really good. Very happy to see that. The other one that comes back to the NTC program, which is that when you look across all the NTC type programs, so not through the NTC program, but that type of program, there were 13 of them in 2024. I think that reflects the rapid response crew. I think we need to get a little more information about what those were from DPW, but I suspect a lot of that is the rapid response crew that City Council authorized and CACT was a proponent for. That's really good. And those have moved fast. So when we look at the NTC program, maybe we need to be shifting more towards that while embracing the citizens' input and how they can initiate them. And I'm not sure, I noticed the registered vehicles dropped by 7%. I'm not really sure what's going on there. It could be fewer cars. Could be we need to do a better job of policing the people who are not paying their taxes. We need that money. There are other little bits and tidbits in there, but some of them we're really not sure about, or you look at them and then you say, wait a minute, that data is from 2021, the comparisons. So we're trying to get some updated data on some of those things. For 2025, continuing to monitor and provide citizen input. The Shreve Road mixed-use trail is a good example. Even though the CACT itself did not provide input, several members either provided input through the city or, in my case, directly to Fairfax County. It's a little bit confusing when you have feedback going into both places. Number one feedback I saw on that, by the way, was that the traffic lanes are way too wide. They're all 11 and 12 feet wide, when with 10-foot wide lanes, we can do a lot with that real estate, and it'll slow things down. Better Bus is coming. Route 7 bus rapid transit we are keeping our eyes on, as well as I haven't really heard much on the Seven Corners Ring Road lately, but we'd like to find out what's going on there, as well as the city ones. This last one was mentioned during public comment. We sent this analysis of the Park and Grove intersections to you earlier today. Residents who live there, members of the CACT, spent time examining what's going on, looking at it. Most of the recommendations, and I can go over them if you would like, are related to paint or low-hanging fruit. There are some that are heavier, such as raising the trail crossings, but most of them relate to either flexi-posts or paint, or in some cases just some signs. I think that intersection scares a lot of people, and I think the problems are about to escalate because we're going to have a lot more volume coming into Founders Row with the movie theater being open. We have also taken another look at the analysis around Oak Street, as well as participating in whatever Complete Streets Vision Zero, and there's been discussion about reviewing the NTC program and seeing where we can make some improvements to that program. I will now take any questions you may have.
Great. Well, thank you for your leadership in assuming the CACT chair role, especially with all the transitions. I think this is one of our most active boards and commissions, so we appreciate all the expertise and the work and the advice that you give to us on that. I'm going to start with Ms. Underhill.
I would also like to echo Letty's thanks, especially dealing with all those vacancies and the detailed analysis that you have sent. We don't need to go over what you sent at West, but I was just reading that today. So thank you for that. I'm curious, and maybe without getting into too much detail, this might be a conversation for later. Do you have any high-level recommendations for the NTC program? Specifically, we've been hearing from certain streets several times that have already gone through the queue and that maybe traffic calming wasn't quite enough. Do you have any sort of high-level observations as to what would make the NTC program stronger?
I do. And primarily, we need to kind of separate the light solutions and the heavy solutions. Speed bumps, speed humps take time, and they need to be well thought out, and that should go through citizen review and so forth. What's interesting is the signs tend to be the sticking point more than the speed humps themselves. But the light solutions and the way the rapid response crew, right now we have too many ways of providing input into the city. And especially with the NTC, the citizens are providing the input specifically to a program versus providing a request for traffic calming to the city. And then we should have a member of the city staff, a professional, look at the request and say, where does this belong? Which program should this be in? This is something that we can handle with the rapid response crew. This is something that, this has multiple facets. Noland, I didn't mention it, but one of the problems there that came up was the fact that half of that block does not have a sidewalk. So that ended up getting added to the missing links program. So really have somebody from staff very quickly, 2 weeks, no big deal, identify what program does this belong in, and then we can quickly get into solutions and getting some feedback to the membership, to the citizens. I would see the role of the CACT maybe evolving as part of that to be more of an appeal process, so that when there are desires to put in FlexiPost, to put in other traffic calming events, citizens often feel that they don't have a place to easily go and speak up. They come here, and I'm sure you've all gotten emails about, I don't like the FlexiPost in front of my house, or I don't like the speed bump. The CACT can take on a bit of that role to say, hey, come, we'll listen, we'll discuss. Often when they come and we discuss, we then talk with staff, and sometimes it's just an assumption about how much parking is actually being utilized and when, because staff doesn't come out at night. There is that, there might be some of them come out at night, but the people who are on the street see it 24/7. Staff can't do that, but we can fill that role to be that appeal. Also, by taking on that role, staff doesn't need to come up with a solution and then wait 2-3 weeks to bring it before the CACT for us to say, yes, move forward. They can move forward, and then if there's a problem, we can step in. So that just eliminated 3 weeks of just sitting around waiting.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Downs.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. I know when we had a discussion about the neighborhood traffic calming process, and it is a very heavy lift for the staff. And I remember our mayor even suggested, maybe at some times instead of going from the bottom up, we have to go from the top down when it's something that's really going to benefit the community as a whole. And maybe once in a while we might, as a council, need to step in with, we often talk about bike lanes being good for the overall community. And again, sometimes I think it can get really stuck in, as you said, maybe it's a sign here or there, that sort of thing. But sometimes if it's for kids getting safely to a bus stop or what have you, maybe the city council can help you all out in those situations. But I really enjoyed, and I also read the report that was, I think it was different than the one that was up on the screen. It was with the staff report, and I thought that was really interesting too. I know you talked about the roads, and I think, for the public to know, it was, I believe, Mr. Shields, $700,000 we are going to put into transportation this year. We added that in right to the budget. Yeah, so I think that's important for the, and I know that Ms. Underhill, when I ran, she talked to me a lot about replacing our streets and that we're behind on that cycle. So that's something that I think, we have to continue to look at. But, so the public knows, they should know that we are putting more money towards transportation and streets. One of the things I read in the report that I thought was interesting, and actually there were some similarities between your report and the EDA's report, which I thought was interesting, but talking about having sort of more of an official role in parking management and improving community awareness of parking. Is that something that, and I know the EDA also sort of brought that up, and I know our mayor would love to see us using technology more to find for parking. So do you have any thoughts on that?
We definitely want to be more involved in parking. By the way, the report you were referring to was the official annual report. This is a presentation of that.
Great.
Parking, we definitely would like to be more involved. We've been monitoring the parking permit requests. That is something we have been doing. We have some thoughts around more on the process and the specifics of how we do parking and how are there opportunities for public-private partnerships and things like that. Less so on the publicizing of where parking is and so forth. So I think us and EDA are looking at the same problem with two different perspectives and looking at two different kind of overlapping, but two parts of it. And together, I think that's great.
Right, I'm just throwing this out there. It might be interesting to have sort of a parking task force between your two groups, to work across the aisle there.
What I would propose, and now we're slipping out of CACT into my other activity, is that we should be taking a hard look at parking as a whole and say, what have we been doing with parking? It's very fragmented. There's a consistency issue and challenges. And I believe a lot of our parking policies are fairly old, and we need to take a broader look. Earlier this year, and this is something we participated in, there was the effort to look at how many parking spaces were required when revamping commercial buildings. I had proposed a few additional things, but the scope that was provided from City Council for that effort was fairly narrow, was very constrained. I would propose that we need to be looking at parking in an unconstrained way. Let staff put together a task force that includes members of the CAC, EDA, some of the other boards and commissions, and let's take a holistic look at it, because the world we live in for technology, as well as what parking types we have, is very different from when the rules were created. I don't know how old they are, but I have a suspicion that we may have had one parking garage at the time. It was all surface parking, and now we have a lot of parking garages. So just the environment has changed. One quick comment back about the roads and the paving. We fully support that. We really haven't been involved in saying, okay, where it is, we just monitor it. DPW does a great job of working on that with what they have. And that's why we were a proponent for additional funding. I believe we'll get a better insight into where we stand fairly soon, because I understand that DPW was getting a new survey of our streets. I'm not entirely sure when that's due, but I don't think it's too far out.
Thank you.
I will plus one kind of parking reform, which we can talk about later. Any other comments?
Just going to add, you can also add the ESC on parking reform, because we've discussed that at length over many years as well.
Parking is a popular subject. And in fact, if you look at the community survey, there's a slide in there that talks about what citizens are most interested in. Number one, walkability. The way the slide is set up, it looks like it's walkability, but bikeability and then parking, easy parking for commercial. But when you look at the numbers, parking actually is higher than bikeability, is in the number 2 position.
Any other final comments? I just have one. So, Dave, sorry, Mr. Hand, go ahead.
You're on mute.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to thank the CACT for a lot of hard work over these past years, and I very much look forward to continuing to work with you for more improvements and keep the new ideas coming. Thank you.
So just a final comment for me. So I look forward to the dashboard when that is ready. But in that vein, though, I think now that we have more data between crash data as well as near miss data, I think that really can be informative to figure out where we put our resources. I think the NTC program is great for that bottoms up, so we get citizen input and neighborhood input on where people are having issues with volume or speeding. But I think the crash and near miss data is actually a really good way to kind of look across the city and make sure we prioritize resources. I think as Ms. Downs said, we often get our resources get really bogged down through that resident process. And I think if we know that we have trouble spots based on actual accidents that are happening or near miss accidents, I think that can be a really good way to put extra resources on there.
I will say that as part of the memo, we got the members who are working on this, on the Founders Row intersections, got a sneak peek to the Smart City data. And one of the items they received was the near miss graphic. And it takes it to that next level of saying not only where the near misses occur, but what's the path of the cars when they're heading there. So for instance, in that intersection, it is the cars coming up west from Broad, turning left to continue on west. That's where the majority of the near misses were occurring with the crosswalk. So you actually get that some really, really good data, and I'm excited as that gets rolled out and we get more access to it.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have the annual report from the EDA next. Welcome, Mr. Lickenhouse.
Thank you. Celeste, do you have a clicker to advance slides? Got a human clicker. Got it. Okay. Just going to try to expedite things for us. You ready? It's going to be fast paced. We're going to move. All right. And that's a bit uncommon for my presentations, but we're going to move. Art, we've got volumes of parking studies and information and opinions at EDA. I'd happy to share that with you. Not short on opinions at EDA. Let me know when you guys are ready. Having what? Technical difficulties? Let me wing it. I could do a interpretive dance of sorts. Yep. I mean, nobody wants to see that.
There it goes.
Ready to go? All right, rock and roll. Can we expand that or no, we can't? Okay, we'll start with that. Thank you all. Ross Litkenhouse, Chair of the Economic Development Authority. Very busy 2024. I know that this report comes a little bit later in the year than usual, but as most of you know, it's been a bit tumultuous the last 12 months. A lot of changeover with staff, some changes within our appointed body as well, and a lot of projects and planning for 2025. So thank you for your attention and time this evening. Starting off here, just to give you a quick kind of roll call on EDA. As you can see that there are some names up there of individuals that are now missing from our community, also from our staff. But we persist and you know, we persevere. We had a number of student representatives this year, two new that have just been appointed, Sarah Mead and Colin Williams. And we now have student mentors, Jim Coyle and Sandy Kears. We've, again, lost Jim Snyder, Paul Stoddard, and a few other folks that have been critical in helping the EDA pull off a fairly ambitious agenda. But we look forward to working with staff for replacement, as well as, you know, growing the support that we get here out of City Hall. Next slide, please. Wow. dial-up or something, right? Okay. I want to take a minute. I know most of us have been to Celebration of Life, Bob's funeral. We lost a valued community member, Bob Young, in late 2024, served dutifully as the chair of the Economic Development Authority. In all honesty and candor, Bob was a polarizing figure to some, but I can tell you, I think I share the feelings of the rest of the Economic Development Authority that none of us question. His energy and his passion for building a better community here in Falls Church through the EDA and in many, many other ways that he contributed his time and his resources to making Falls Church, our schools, and our business community better. Bob will definitely be missed, big shoes to fill, and I think as someone said in an earlier presentation, Justine, I think it was actually you, standing on the shoulders of giants. So Bob will certainly be missed. 9 years of service to the EDA and 5 years as chair and involved in a myriad of other things here in the Falls Church business community. We also recognized Ed Salzberg, who has been the steady hand on the wheel of Industrial Development Authority, the Economic Development Authority here in Falls Church, and I would still consider him, on our advisory board. He still shows up. So we recognized Ed's service over several decades and certainly appreciate everything that he's brought to the EDA over that time. Next. So I'm going to have a list of activities from 2024. Some of these we'll drill down on. So just to give you kind of a summary here, and then we'll move into some of the specifics of those. We had our NAIOP bus tour, parking strategies, Art, which again, I'm happy to discuss with you. A number of beautification efforts. Next slide. And our bullet point here, as you can see, we were very, very busy in 2024 and have a fairly ambitious agenda for 2025, but it looks a little bit different than what we've seen over the last calendar year. Just give you guys a second to consume that, and we'll dig into some of the details. Next slide. This was exciting. As someone that spent 2 decades working in commercial real estate here in the DC area, the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties, acronymed NAIOP, which is much more encompassing than industrial and office, does an annual bus tour here in the greater DC area. This is the first time in NAIOP's bus tour history that we have hosted that bus tour here in the city of Falls Church. We hosted at the West Falls Project, focused on a number of the developments that we've seen here in the city of Falls Church, but I would say that this was kind of a watershed moment for Falls Church in terms of its spotlight within the commercial real estate community. There were hundreds of commercial real estate investors, lenders, developers, builders, subcontractors, brokers. It is I would say, a fairly broad cross-section of the commercial real estate community, and to have it hosted here in the city of Falls Church, personally and professionally, and certainly from what the city's accomplished, rightfully so, marked a very important moment in terms of our evolution here in the built environment. Next slide. Speaking of West Falls, the retail property management contract was assigned to Cushman & Wakefield. The EDA and Economic Development Office in general had some participation in that, but it's important to note that this is a very I would say one of the most well-known property management firms here nationally and globally. So to have Cushman & Wakefield tap to manage the retail at West Falls, I think again speaks to the quality of the assets that we've seen built here in Falls Church. Also, Bob Young served as the head of the CDA over at West Falls. One of our members, Alan Brangman, who is new to the EDA for 2025, now holds that position. I would say it's a little more than ceremonial. I think we're only meeting a couple times a year, but they did a good job of helping keep the wheels on the bus over there as it relates to the EDA and the city's interest in the West Falls CDA. Next slide. One of the other important activities that the EDA participated in, and I would say was just an overall economic development activity, was the Urban Land Institute's Technical Assistance Panel. As many of you are probably aware, it was a ULI TAP that actually, I would say, seeded the public-private partnership, which eventually became West Falls. These technical assistance panels bring experts from around the region under the management of ULI, as well as other volunteers, to develop a vision for what a particular submarket or area could be. And the ULI TAP, I think, was It was released to a lot of fanfare, a lot of participation from across the community. Stakeholders came together to envision something that could become as part of the ULI, as part of the Gordon Road Triangle. And I would point out for folks in the community that may be watching, these ULI TAP studies, it is not a zoning exercise. It is not a development exercise. It is a vision exercise. This will take decades to play out. But what we have found is that the city's, I would say, kind of last large contiguous parcel for small area planning was illustrated the potential of that through this TAP study, which can be found online. Next. Broad in Washington was delivered in 2024, and back to the topic of parking, we got 64 additional public parking spaces that replaced the surface parking lot where Broad in Washington sits. And I will say, anecdotally, not naming names, but some of the adjacent businesses that had a lot of concerns about the Broad in Washington project, I think have been very pleased with the partnership with Insight Property Group and the Broad in Washington development as a whole as part of that shared parking arrangement. So it does go to show that with proper input from the community, a little give and take from the developer, we can create a public amenity inside of our mixed-use developments that benefit both the new development as well as the existing. Next slide. We commissioned a study on parking strategies. As most of you know, parking minimums, parking used, transportation to and from commercial buildings have changed considerably since COVID. I would say that shift was probably already starting before COVID, but it just precipitated that change much faster. So this study helped us outline and inform the EDA, and we've shared with other committees and boards and commissions here throughout the city to inform some of those changing to the parking minimums that we've seen in zoning. Be happy to dig into some of the details of that with you all if you do have questions. Next slide. Established in August of 2023, we had our very popular Falls Church Restaurant Week, which started with ARPA grants coming out of COVID. We continued that in 2024 and had an additional restaurant week in 2025 as well, and it's grown considerably, as you will see here in the following slide. This gives you a snapshot of what we were able to accomplish in 2024. And the one thing that I do want to point out is not only have we seen growth in participation from restaurants, we've seen organic growth in social media, the number of visitors. We've been able to quantify the benefit of how this money is being spent and the ROI on that money. And again, this was funded initially with ARPA funds coming out of COVID at $20,000, and the EDA decided to self-fund again in 2025. We have opted not to have an additional restaurant week. There was some discussion related to that, but decided that we needed to expand our investment and our commitment to other types of businesses within the city. As you will note here, we expanded that to have a fitness week to focus on some of our fitness and health businesses. And we're going to continue to look for opportunities to support other businesses that don't just serve food and drinks and keep people sweaty. Next slide. This is the growth from 2024 to 2025. So we grew the number of participating restaurants. I think we lost a few from 2024. I'm sorry, from 2024, but we picked up a few net new businesses and restaurants that had opened over the past year. Our engagement, both in social media as well as foot traffic, and some of the organic growth that we saw in media. Picked up considerably, and I'd like to give a shout out to Trish Barba, who the EDA had hired and has seen this through its inaugural year when it was established in 2023 through 24 and into 25. If it wasn't for her commitment, and I would say her skill in obtaining both paid and unpaid media, I do not think that either of these restaurant weeks would have been as successful as they are. So we look to continue this in some form or another, but overall, Restaurant Week has been very popular, and we've continued to see that growth over the last couple of years. Next slide. This gives you a snapshot of the restaurants that participated. The ones highlighted in yellow are new to the city. So it was a broad cross-section of restaurant offerings, and based on our feedback and the follow-up surveys with the businesses and also with our discussions of participants, this was widely appreciated. Next slide. We also created a restaurant dining guide, and I think one of the things that the EDA has been looking to do is to build more repositories, more of a larger repository for marketing assets for our businesses in the city. And where I'm going to spend most of the time tonight is not really reflecting on 2024, because I think that you can see that clearly in our presentation, but it's to talk about a bit of the shift in focus and mindset in 2025, and that is helping focus on getting to know our businesses and supporting them in every way possible, and creating some of these assets that we can use in perpetuity, like a restaurant dining guide, like wayfinding, those types of things that can live out there, that we can promote without having to spend additional money and time, are an important way for us to support our businesses that I would consider high value, low effort. Next slide. So speaking of supporting our businesses, we've spent a considerable amount of time, I would say, over the last 6 months talking about how we can develop more of a, so maybe intimate relationship is not the way to describe it, but getting to know our businesses better, how we can support our businesses when they're thinking about opening, once they've opened, and how we can encourage them to do business with other businesses in the city. One of the things that we heard loud and clear, which has always been a point of focus here, I think, in City Hall, is how do we support folks that come to us and say, I want to bring my money, my time, my resources, my life savings to open up a business here in the city, and helping them in any way we can to shorten the timeline, lessen the pain, reduce costs for them. And so we created a starting a business checklist, which we are going to grow that initiative into helping support new businesses open up here in the city from lessons learned from other businesses that have reported kind of ways that we can be more efficient and effective. Next slide. So as a non sequitur, back to Winter Wonderland in 2024, which a few of us, no problem denigrating ourselves in front of an entire community dressed as an elf for the benefit of our children. See smiles on their faces. It continues to be popular. Many, many thanks to Mill Creek at Founders Row for helping participate and sponsor this. It's been hugely successful. It continues to grow. And I would say it's one of the joys of the EDA to talk about how we can continue to grow that Winter Wonderland, contemplating a potential holiday market, expanding lights and winter celebration throughout the city off the backs of that. So that is also on our 2025 agenda, how we can continue to grow this initiative, get more businesses involved, and get more folks from the community to this Winter Wonderland event, and then also how we can get folks from outside the community to come here, spend their dollars, and then go home. Next slide. Just some more pictures of fire trucks, trees, people, dressed as elves. All right. So one of the signature projects coming off the back of COVID funding were parklets that were constructed and also recently named here. We had a list of parklets that we had designed and funded. We got to building 2 of these, Cavalier Trail Plaza, as well as the Civic Triangle, which is right there near Annandale Road. We deferred our 3rd parklet because of its location next to a potential commercial development here in the very near future. Decided to keep some powder dry and also redeploy those funds as opposed to building a parklet in an area that could otherwise be damaged or maybe needed to be redesigned or thought of in a different way once that development takes place. So these are the 2 parklets that were funded. And I would say many, many thanks to the folks here in DPW and City Hall for partnering with us to pull these off. The EDA has a tendency to want to move fast, and often that comes at the risk of upsetting folks that actually have to oversee these projects. So DPW have been great partners in helping us get these projects across the finish line. Next slide. New gateways were planted. Beautification is an important part of the EDA. I know it was always one of Bob's favorite things to put flowers anywhere he can, anywhere he could. These new gateways, help create, I think, a more beautiful visual coming into the city. And so we planted at North Washington, Broad, Roosevelt, on both sides, north, south, east, west. Next slide. Thanks. Pole planters were extended. They look great. If you haven't seen them, they're out. Most of them are flooded at this point. This was another EDA initiative, and beautification is still on the list for our 2025 work plan. Next slide. Couldn't have a presentation on the EDA if we didn't talk about Mr. Brown's Park. It's one of the things that Jim Snyder, who's recently retired, is most proud of. EDA funded that and continues to take care of maintenance and seasonal planting. And I will say, this park and other parklets, I continue to be impressed at strategic location of these small green spaces can generate activity for businesses, and it in many cases gets criticized for the size of it. It doesn't seem like a real park, but if you walk by that on any given day, it has served as a bit of a catalyst for that area and certainly increases foot traffic. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that these things, these types of small developments, small improvements can generate real dollars for our businesses, which again, that is our charter, is to help stimulate economic development activity. And so while it may look like something like this should fall under a park and rec authority, this really is meant to help drive foot traffic to businesses and is shown to do that. So we like to continue to do these things even if they don't look like they immediately have a direct correlation to our charter. We also developed a tourism website, which again, this was this kind of cross-pollinated with Restaurant Week. Again, creating these kind of perpetual marketing assets where we can get information out there to people in a way that they can learn more about Falls Church and our businesses. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, please do. Next slide. Oh, Virginia Village, everyone's favorite topic. We continue to push this rock up the hill. The EDA has spent time, contributed money, hours, tears, probably some blood in there at some point to try to move forward an affordable housing project or mixed income project that would allow us to redevelop an area of town that I think could bring a lot of value to our mission of creating housing diversity and more affordable housing here in the city of Falls Church. There was a property management contract that was recently assigned. We had to kind of go back to the drawing board after losing our partnership with Wesley Housing, but it continues to remain on the EDA's agenda, and I am hopeful that we'll be able to see this through to have a tangible strategy for redevelopment of Virginia Village at some point in the next 12 to 400 months. Next slide. Also at a Little City, I voted sticker design. Winner was Ryan Miller from Meridian High School. I think it turned out great. It helps pull out some of the more prominent features of the Falls Church business community, as you can see there, with alluding to many of our eclectic international cuisine scene. Next slide. All right, it's the most important part. Calendar year 2025 work plan. So over the last, I would say, decades, this elected body, as well as our general government and certainly the EDA, have been consumed, I think, by the larger development projects that we've undertaken, some of which we talked about when Dr. Noonan received his award here, from West Falls to Broad Washington and everything in between on Broad Street. It has really taken up most of the oxygen in the room. From a market perspective, as well as following City Council's agenda and just what we've seen come through planning and permitting offices, I think that these large-scale projects are going to continue to slow down, if not pause for some time. And I think it's time for the EDA to get back to the basics. We've brought in a lot of new businesses, both ground floor and above, over the last 10 years coming out of most of those developments, and I think we're still playing a little bit of catch-up, getting to know those businesses. And so a lot of what you will see on our work plan may not look as exciting or sexy as we've seen in the past, but incredibly important as we support those businesses that took a chance on relocating or expanding here into Falls Church. And so from marketing to business development, again, to beautification, and then we've kept affordable housing there, you will see that this back to basics is really about supporting the businesses that we have and getting to know them and seeing how we can increase foot traffic, how we can increase sales to those businesses, both from foot traffic coming in from those that live here in the community from outside, but again, also businesses doing business with other businesses. Next slide. So drilling down a little bit more, back up one, back up. Yep, there we go. One of the other things that I've done as EDA chair is ask for champions for our individual work plan items. And I think that it's important, one, because we have a lot of ground to cover, but two, it's good if folks feel like they have some skin in the game and they can own an individual portion of our work plan. What we've also done is allocate, excuse me, according to each column, an amount that is coming as part of our EDA budget request. I alluded to in my comments related to Virginia Village that the EDA has contributed almost $1 million to furthering those efforts to acquire properties at Virginia Village in hopes of redeveloping into a larger affordable project. $450,000 of that we've asked as part of our budget request, which I believe you're all voting on tonight. And we felt that it was important when we go to mom and dad and ask for money that we show them where we're going to spend it. And so what we have done is we have assign champions to each one of these so you know that there is accountability in the EDA, and also assign dollar amounts to let you know that we have thought about this prescriptively in terms of the amount of money that we will need. So starting with marketing and special events, we want to continue some of the things that we have done in the past. I talked about the Falls Church Fitness Challenge, which Sandy and her jazzercise capacity was great at helping us promote. And so we'd like her to help oversee some of those expanded marketing programs. And again, hopefully utilizing Trish Barbara and her expertise as we get the word out about our businesses. These things do cost money. The professional photography, social media, and the fitness challenge, I would say, are the least expensive of what we have planned on pursuing for 2025. One of the things that we would like to, or we are investigating right now, is a customer relationship management software, a CRM software. It is very difficult for us to promote businesses and to promote activities here in the city if we don't know who to contact at each business. We don't know how we've contacted those individuals. We don't know what they've participated in unless we happen to talk to somebody here at City Hall in one of our boards and commissions or someone else involved in the community that knows that individual. So the simple act of allowing someone to opt in for us to contact them, to let them know that we are having a fitness challenge in the month of April, that we are having a restaurant week and we would like them to participate, and then tracking their engagement as part of that. So the CRM software, which is something that is very, very common in the business community, serves as effectively a business development tool so we can understand who our customers are, because as an economic development authority that has been chartered with stimulating economic development activity here in the city of Falls Church, we need to understand our customers better. And every single piece of our 2025 work plan is about supporting the business community. Yes, we are still here to weigh in on things related to the built environment and development, but our charter here is to stimulate economic development activity. And that starts with us understanding who our customers are and beginning to aggregate that information so we can utilize it to support those businesses across all of our activities. Moving down to business development, we talked a little bit about our initial business needs surveys. One of the things that we find ourselves doing quite a bit, and this is wearing a couple different hats, having lived here and volunteered through the community, is in many cases we start to believe that we understand, we know what the businesses need or what their pain points are. And so this business needs survey, we want to advance to have business roundtables, to ask folks what their experience was like opening here, operating here, hearing directly from them, cataloging that information, and then using that to make some decisions. So that business needs survey and those roundtables are something that we're undertaking. Got a few other things here I'll skip through. We're re-examining our business professional occupational license professional services tax rate, which is a tax on the gross receipts of businesses. And the reason we're doing that is to look for ways that we can support new businesses that may be looking to relocate a one or two person shop. If we can get those businesses here and get them over the finish line by helping them save a couple $1,000s in the nascent years of their business startup, they can locate here, grow here, expand here, and we would all benefit from an economic development perspective. Going down to beautification, again, I cannot stress enough how important, even though it may not seem like an economic development authority activity, beautification streetscape that creates a visual environment that gets people to visit businesses and want to come into the city. Once you get here, you are spending money somewhere. Nobody drives into the city park and doesn't spend money. That just really doesn't happen. And so creating this beautiful environment wherever we can to supplement the amazing work that the city has been doing, we would like to spend our money doing that. So we're all committed to it. And then the final thing on this list is our affordable housing initiative, which really right now is focused primarily on Virginia Village. Next slide. Actually, can you go forward one more, and then we'll go back to this one real quick. Just one recent addition to the EDA work plan that was a late add, but we've already talked about one of our EDA meetings, is revisiting the commercial property tax abatement program. So I mentioned before that we've spent a considerable amount of time over the last decade on ground-up development. We have a lot of buildings here with a lot of love to give that we may not necessarily want to see assembled and torn down. In many cases, if you look at the kind of real estate economics of what incentivizes an owner of those buildings to do when they get to that question of how am I going to monetize my investment? What is the future of this investment that I hold? We want to create an opportunity for them to be able to hold on to that, to reinvest and create value in those existing assets without having the knee-jerk reaction of my only way to get out of this property and monetize it the best way possible is to look for an assemblage and a redevelopment. This commercial tax abatement program or tax abatement program for commercial properties has been underutilized, and I think that it's because it was envisioned and it was implemented in a different time in the city's history. And so we were looking at ways that we can modify that would be net neutral to the tax base. Again, not giving away. We're not stroking a check to get somebody to incentivize them to improve their property. We may be foregoing some future taxes for some period of time in exchange for them to improve that property. So there's a lot of mechanics there. I could spend hours talking about this program, but it's an area where we think that with the right information, right data, and research, we could come to council with a proposal on how we could modify that program to accomplish just that, which is to help preserve the existing small commercial that we have, and giving our commercial property owners an opportunity to preserve, enhance the value of those without full-scale ground-up redevelopment. Sorry, back to that other slide. So off of that work plan, this is where we are to date. We've had our Restaurant Week 2025 Fitness Challenge, updated the streetscape. Again, we've assigned champions to each one of our 2025 work plan agenda items, and we have a host of other things that we've undertaken, again, all with the mission of supporting the businesses that we have, getting back to basics, getting back to street level, and working more towards supporting the businesses that we have and the ones that are moving in. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm sure we have questions and comments. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Ross, and thanks to the whole EDA crew for all the work that's happened. I just want to provide more comments and questions, actually, in agreement in a lot of areas, but in no particular order. I also wanted to comment on the youth rep program that you have. Having a mentor assigned to each of those, I think, is just a fantastic idea, so that someone takes direct responsibility with incorporating students into the process and then really actually spending time to learn what their perspective is, because it's pretty valuable as they're consumers and they're representatives of their families and the next generation in the city. So thank you for doing that. And along the same lines, thank you for the work plan where we've assigned people. It's always more effective to have people, like you said, have skin in the game and really take ownership. And we have so much expertise on that in the EDA, so I think it's fantastic to have each member step up and have specific assignments. I think we could replicate that through a lot of our boards and commissions to make sure that each of our members have something they're specifically tasked with doing, increases engagement, increases responsibility, and quite great work product too. Big fan of the parklets. I also just want to shout out to Viget. Thanks for adding furniture. They added furniture to Browns Park. Just wanted to mention that. It was nice to see the community supporting community. They work right across the street and they're like, hey, we need more seating. Well, why don't we provide it? And they just did. So that's more of the business to business and business engagement and things like the EDA that result in just niceties like that really do create a great community. Having spent time working on creating a CRM and going from the bottoms up on CRM, it's definitely a labor-intensive launch. So I know that anything the EDA can do to support the EDO in researching it and providing feedback on what's the most effective type to use, because we're not super complicated, but then also helping EDO figure out how to tie that into other Falls Church systems so that that information that we're using for business development in those specific areas can also be used to target, whether it's anything from emergency services to more business to business to the roundtables that you're talking about, all of which I think are great ideas. Because I have definitely myself fallen prey to I've lived here a long time. I think I know what people want. Let's put together a program, and then you find out, well, maybe you should have asked the people what they really want, what these businesses really want before you put a program together. Because as much as you might have your perspective on it, or until you really know what those businesses need from the city and from the EDO and from city council and legislative across the state, we really don't know. So I'm in strong favor of both the CRM and the roundtables and surveys out to the businesses to find out what they really need. And additional shout out to Trisha Barba. She was just fantastic. Anytime, Mary Beth and I were literally at a restaurant. We're like, hey, you want to show up and do a video here? And she'd be there in within minutes. There's a lot of fun, and we got a lot of great feedback from the community and from the business owners, most importantly. I hope that it doesn't take 400 months before we have a Virginia Village plan. I know that I speak for, I think, all of my colleagues, and the importance of continuing to think about what's best to do for that particular area of the city, and how we can combine public-private partnerships to ensure that we have affordable housing, that we have multiple income housing, and as well some commercial. To the extent we can do that is pretty key. And again, using all the expertise that is within the EDA to help staff is all the better. And then last but not least, on the tax abatement front, I also think I'm speak for many of us who are thrilled with the infill development that we've had at Northside Social, at Godfrey's, at our newest Crepe Place. I mean, these are just fantastic uses of existing buildings, and if we could incent people to do that more, like you mentioned, without a paycheck directly, but some more creative ways of doing that. I'm really interested to see what you all come up with on the tax abatement, because I think that's an incredibly promising way to do some development that isn't adding significantly to the large-based construction that we're going to be, still working through and seeing how they all kind of play out in our city. So hopefully I went as rapid fire as you did.
Yeah,
and
no, thank you. Just two comments on that, really for the benefit of Wyatt and Sally. She's making notes about sharing data through a CRM. We're going through the process now of looking for what we think is the best CRM based on value and needs from an economic development perspective. And the next step would be talking with Wyatt and Sally about how that could be utilized or should be utilized, because the sharing of information for businesses is somewhat, it's restricted to the Commissioner of Revenue in certain areas, but there may be ways that that we can strategically think about sharing certain types of data. But that would be kind of the next step of, okay, what can be shared, who can participate in it. But we're sensitive to the fact that not everybody can just have access to information about all of our businesses and things like that.
well, the opting in is obviously
Yes,
key.
100%. You're right. Yes, Vice Mayor. And then the last thing on Virginia Village, I was being facetious. It's not going to take 400 months. There has actually been a considerable amount of time and planning on the next steps around Virginia Village, but it almost warrants a presentation in and of itself. It's just that it's been very tumultuous the last 18 months. But we do have a plan. There are things happening, and we are committed to making that happen. And that rang through loud and clear when we were talking about our budget request. We have left money in Virginia Village, not asking for the money that's been contributed, regardless of the hiccups and the roadblocks. So our EDA is committed to it because create housing for all for individuals that work at our businesses is important, and we look at that as part of our strategy and a need to remain involved on that project. So, yep.
And I would just add, Virginia Village is on the agenda for July 7th, so we'll have a full discussion of the roadmap ahead.
I don't want to steal Wyatt's thunder. It's exciting.
Okay, other questions or comments? Ms. Downs.
Yeah, I want to echo, first of all, thank you very much. And Mr. Coyle, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It was a great report. Wanted to just second Ms. Hiscock's comments about the tax abatement. One of the things I think people are very happy with, some of the bigger mixed use coming in with the Whole Foods and all that, but residents have also made it very clear that they don't want to lose the small little, places that make it interesting, and I know that there are people who are a little bit nervous because there have been some for sale, for lease signs, Brown's has got that strip, and now also where the antique annex is. So I think I've had people say, those aren't going to be knocked down in some huge thing, and so I think that, and I know the mayor has said this as well, it's really nice to have a mix of the bigger mixed use and the small sort of mom and pop kind of places. So that I support Ms. Hiscock's comments on that. I also liked a lot about the updating these 2018 Broad Street Streetscape Survey. I think that's a great idea. And I loved when you talked about with the work plan, the business needs survey. That's also something that I think will go a long ways. And also with the starting businesses, one of the things we've been doing in Government Operations Committee is we met with Mr. Young and Mr. Shields about permitting. And I know this is something that can be tough for a business when they're starting. So just keeps the lines of communication open with us. And that's something that it's not going to be an easy fix, but we're working on it. So just keep us, in mind and keep as I said, just keep in communication with us, because I know that is something that can really, hinder a business from getting started if that permitting process is too complicated. And then finally, I just, hats off to you all with the Restaurant Week. It's fantastic. And it's got us so much coverage outside of Falls Church City. It was always mentioned alongside with Arlington's Restaurant Week and all this on the local news, on WTOP. So just not only did it do a lot for our restaurants, I think it sort of put us out there with the big boys, in terms of we have our own Restaurant Week. And so it was terrific. Real great job on your part. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
I will keep this short so that we can keep the meeting moving, but like Mayor Hardy said, that CACT is an active board. EDA is also definitely an active board. And it's great to see there's so many projects that people see, like Restaurant Week, like the pocket parks and other things like that. But I'm really glad to see that there's now a focus, especially on some of the things people don't see. So that would be permitting and other things like that. So keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to give you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two quick things. I guess I'm going to start with one thing I've always appreciated about the EDA is that you guys have been instrumental with the analytics behind our decision making. And so while it's not always just about the numbers, I guess there's two areas of work that I really look forward to. I think it's in your 2025 plan. So one is a refresh of the fiscal impact report card. I think it's probably been about 2 years since we've done that. So I do think that's just a healthy habit to get in every 2 years going back to our mixed-use projects, see how they performed. I think it's important for us. And we spend a lot of time analyzing what the fiscals are when we make the decision to approve the project, not approve the project. We should go back and monitor how our progress is. So look forward to that in 2025. A second, piggybacking the parking discussion. So I think you probably will have a majority of council who will support some sort of parking reform. I think we did our first incremental step. I do think, though, that a good first step is to actually revisit our parking study. So I think we've done 3 parking studies in my time on council. The last one was 2020, so pre-COVID. A lot has changed. We keep growing. We've also added more shared parking structures in the city since then, but it might be helpful to refresh that parking study since it's probably been about 5 years. So starting with a baseline of here's parking utilization today, here's where the hotspots were 5 years ago, here's where they are today, and that probably can inform, is there need to, move to paid parking on the streets, think about more sharing. I think our assumption has been so far with the 3 parking studies that we actually don't have a massive parking shortage, and it's really more of a wayfinding issue, which is why the EDA invested in signs. But I do think between technology and obviously the changes to the city since 2020, it's probably worth revisiting a parking study perhaps and updating that data before we embark on massive parking reform.
Okay.
So that would be the 2 things I'd recommend in terms of refreshing and monitoring and make sure we have some analytics behind how we make decisions. Second, I know you called it kind of back to basics, but I really think that this kind of bid-like work and reimagining what the EDA is going to embark on in 2025 is great, especially supporting kind of beautification, marketing the city, and really thinking about the full life cycle of a business. So opening a business, supporting a business to help them be more successful and grow their customer base, and hopefully expansion opportunities. So thinking about it from a customer perspective, I think is great. And so look forward to all the work there.
Thank you. I was remiss. Vice Chair Jim Coyle is here. Anything I missed, Jim? No. Yeah. Jim's been carrying the banner of tourism, culture heritage in the city of Falls Church, so it's good to have his perspective here. So thank you.
And more of a request, now that we have that great marketing asset with the Visit Falls Church page, do we monitor how many visits we get? Like, I often think we do good work in, launching projects, launching new sidewalks, launching a new website. Do we actually toot our own horn and talk about it more and get people to actually come to that page?
Yeah, so I know that Sarah does track analytics, search analytics for most of the digital assets that we have. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head exactly what that is, but I can talk with her.
Yeah. My sense is really during those campaigns, like during Restaurant
That's
Week, that we
correct.
drive traffic, we probably don't do much other than that. And to be great to think about it as year-round. Like, let's brag about ourselves. We've done a really nice job over the past 20 years of building up the reputation of the city and adding lots of amenities to Falls Church. It'd be great to think about talking about the city year-round and not just those, 3 or 4 campaigns during the year.
I completely agree, and that was kind of going to the end of these like perpetual marketing assets. It's like once we built it, it's a little bit to maintain it, but it's something that's out there that we can continue to push and promote at very little cost without having to rethink something and recreate something from scratch. So I will talk with Sarah about that and then talk to the rest of the EDA on how we can continue to push traffic to that through the various events. So
Great. Final thought from Vice Mayor.
Sorry, I was just thinking about that website and our new development of our current website, and just want to make sure that we're all keeping in mind how they can best be merged moving forward, because it would be really great to not have to search out a separate economic development website from our overarching city website. It's confusing.
I think they're intended to be separate entities, but I'm not sure that
they can be linked better, though. That's what I mean.
we have consolidated some because there were a variety of like living websites out there. Some has been consolidated, but I'll raise that topic again, make sure we don't have too much redundancy. So thank you all for being so generous with your time.
Thank you. Oh, it looks like Mr. Snyder has a final comment.
Thanks a lot, Ross, and thanks to the EDA for your work, particularly as we focus on adaptive reuse and bringing in small retail for things that we can't get right now in the city. So thanks. I think that's a great way forward. One of the things that I want to see us develop is a true life cycle pricing on the big developments. That is not just what they've yielded in terms of tax revenue in the short term, but what costs they add in terms of infrastructure in the long term. And I'm not sure that's an EDA issue, but I want to go back to really thank you, Ross and the EDA, for some really creative ways and things that you're thinking about moving forward. So thank you.
Staff last week, and there is a refresh, I believe, that is coming for the city's fiscal impact model, which will measure revenue and expenses. So that might be an area that could provide some additional insight for what you described as the life cycle cost and pricing for those developments. So I know that there's some work being done there to refresh that model with the consultants that the city has hired.
Right, including infrastructure costs and the accretion effect on infrastructure and services might be very useful as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the report of the city manager. And then maybe we'll get to the business on the agenda by 10.
Thank you, Mayor Hardy. We'll go briskly. I do have 5 things I wanted to update the city council on.
I didn't mean to rush you by it. It's okay.
Quickly.
Thank you. It's our fault.
First, for the community's awareness, we have launched the Solid Waste Task Force. We had our first meeting on June 11th. We have launched the website. All the meeting materials are available to the public. And just to remind the public, the purpose of the Solid Waste Task Force is to provide recommendations on how the city pays for curbside solid waste recycling and composting services, and also any other policy changes that would be aligned with the solid waste management plan that was adopted in 2024. So the upcoming meetings for the public's awareness will be meeting on Wednesday, June 25th at 2 p.m., Wednesday, July 9th at 2 p.m., and Monday, July 21st at 2 p.m., all here at City Hall. These meeting dates can be found on the city's website as well. We have 3 resident members that are working closely with staff to develop a set of recommendations that will be presented to the City Council on August 4th. So I want to thank our 3 citizen reps who have stepped up to serve the community in this capacity. The second thing to report on is just to acknowledge the heavy rains that we had on Friday night and over the course of the weekend, Friday night in particular. June and July and August are historically when we've had some of our most severe flood events. So I encourage all property owners to take actions now to, as you think of overland relief and how surface water flows across your property, to take steps now to protect your basements and your property. The city also is always checking up on our solid stormwater system to make sure it is functioning properly. Bahailu Kifle, our stormwater engineer, is following up just to assess any damage over the weekend, and Matt Brown on any soil and erosion issues associated with construction projects. The third thing to report on, one other thing to note, the city does have 2 rain gauges that are accessible online. They update every 15 minutes. That is something that's very useful to track. Generally, if we're getting about an inch of rain in 20 minutes, that's when we start to have problems. On Friday night, we had 2 inches of rain in about 45 minutes. That's a very heavy rain. That's over the 10-year event. And so we did have some issues, not extensive issues, which we're very thankful for. The community center, as I mentioned earlier, the HVAC project is complete and staff have moved back into the building. It's open to the public. It's been great to hear Danny Schlitt, our Rec and Parks Director, sing the praises of our project manager, Lionel Millard, for delivering that project on time. We are planning an event to celebrate this improvement in our efficiency and how we run that building and lowering our carbon footprint on how we operate our buildings. And that was a very successful project. Danny also wants to make sure everybody remembers that this is not a full remodel of the community center, and he will probably, and the Rec and Parks Board, be lobbying for more renovations in the future. Fourth item, our website is under maintenance right now, so keep an eye on the city website. We're going to be refreshing how it looks, how we present information to the public. This has been a really important strategic objective of the City Council, is to improve our communication with community. We've made a key hire with Joshua Supranat, who is our website manager, and you're starting to see the impacts of how we're updating our website. So stay tuned to that. And then lastly, the city offices will be closed on Thursday in celebration of Juneteenth, Freedom Day, in the City of Falls Church. This is a federal and state holiday and is celebrated here in the City of Falls Church. And let me just note a couple of things that will be happening on Juneteenth. At the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation, there will be a celebration focusing on freedom, community, and unity from noon until 5 o'clock. That's at the Tinner Hill Historic Site. And then at 7 p.m., we kick off our Concerts in the Park series. And on that evening, then Thursday, June 19th, we'll have a performance of Lift Every Voice and Sing, followed by the Tinner Hill Music Concert on featuring blues, funk, and jazz. So that's my report tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. You did make it brisk. Before I open up questions, I just wanted to quickly say thank you to staff, not only for the storm response, but I think there was so much civic action over the weekend between maybe hundreds or thousands of people peacefully protesting on Broad Street. So I know that required a lot of city staff work between public works, public safety, and emergency management. So appreciate the work there, as well as supporting a community painting project at the Eden Center in that early morning. So thank you for that. Okay, council requests or questions. Vice Mayor.
I just want to echo the thanks on the support of the civic process this weekend. It was pretty amazing. So really, really appreciate that of all the team members involved. And the ESC had a tour of the geothermal wells. I just want to compliment Lionel Millard for joining the ESC last week and for giving us a kind of a preview tour. And it was again raised that hopefully there'll be some signage out and around, because when you go to take the tour, the geothermal wells are predominantly underground. I mean, most of the cool stuff that's happening is out of sight. It's happening underground in a field that nobody can really visualized. So I don't even know if maybe we have a drawing or something on signage that shows what's happening underground, because you see intake pipes and outflow pipes, and you can look in the mechanical room and the pumps, and it's super interesting. But in terms of visual appeal, I think the message would be particularly helpful to have it seen in some kind of signage with, diagram or display. And I'm sure Andy has some great ideas on how to best do that. But that was brought up by a number of people. Like, it would be really great if there was something that was describing the process of what's happening underground and what's happening with the pumps and the transfer of the heat and why it's important. So if we could just, make a note of that. Again, Lionel did a great job, lots of technical specificity. But for the average resident, I think a visual representation would be great. Thank you.
Ms. Downs?
Thank you so much, Mr. Shields. And congratulations. I know you had a big family event this weekend, so congratulations. Couple of requests. First, with the flooding, our street definitely had we had to move cars and that sort of thing. I was wondering, this is for the public. I think the city does it have an alert? I received the weather alerts through weather apps and that sort of thing. So I knew that there was a flood watch, and I warned my neighbors, and they were unaware. Does the city have some sort of alert system?
We certainly do. So it is by subscription.
Okay.
Unless there are certain alerts that go out to all mobile devices, but most of our alerts are by subscription.
Okay.
So if you go to the city website and look up for Falls Church alerts, the public can subscribe, and you'll get real-time information for the city. You can sign up for what types of alerts you want to receive, but that's a very useful system, and so I encourage people to sign up.
Would we be able to put that in Falls Church Focus sort of as a follow-up to, we know that neighbors experienced, a lot of flooding because of this was a every 10-year event sort of thing, and here, because it occurred to me, I used to be signed up for and I don't know why I don't have to go back and sign up again. So, but it might be good for the community to know, because my neighbors certainly were not aware.
We do promote it kind of on a regular basis, but
Okay.
it's a good time to do it again. We
Okay.
also have hurricane preparedness, so
Yeah.
this is the season to sign up for Falls Church alerts, and we'll promote that.
Okay, great, thank you. A couple other things. We had someone this evening talk about the South Lee project that we discussed in a work session recently. What is the next step for that? Do we just wait to see if the developers come back, or?
So that is what we will, staff presented recommendations to the city council. The city council provided feedback on those. So in the process, the applicants can still provide additional information, and we evaluate that. We can get more information, a little bit more clarity on it, because that answer probably sounds a little vague to people, but, property owners have rights to petition the government for changes to their property, and, the property owner is currently exercising those rights.
Okay, thank you. Two other quick things. One, I know we've received a lot of emails about the greening of Lincoln, and just to let the public know, July 7th, that's on our agenda, right? To
Yes.
have a deep dive on that.
Is on the work session for July 7th, as is the Virginia Village, as we mentioned earlier. Yes, greening of Lincoln is.
Okay, great. And then my final question is, a member of VPUS had contacted us. They received a community member talking to them at the Memorial Day, at their Memorial Day booth about why do we not have community gardens? And I was wondering, is that something that, and I don't even know if this is just, I would need to talk to Danny, but is that something that could be incorporated into the Fellows Park project?
So there is there is some edible landscaping that's part of the plan for Fellows Park, but not so much community plots.
Okay.
Probably the best locations that we haven't determined this, but some of the properties we bought on Sharrow, down in that area, down in the floodplain, gets more sunshine, which is one of the big problems with Fellow. It's sort of a north face and a lot of shade, so it's not very good for gardening. But there's some options in the future. But the reason historically we haven't is sort of a lack of a really good open, sunny spot where community gardens could be really successful.
Okay, interesting. So more to come on that, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Also water access. We don't have a lot of plots.
Yeah, you need to have access to water.
Other council requests or comments? Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, yes, Mr. Snyder, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Well, first of all, I want to support all the comments that council members have made and Wyatt for working really hard to manage a difficult situation. And we know that because of actions taken by the administration in Washington, critical federal support agencies to what we do are being gutted. NOAA is one, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that produces the best data on climate issues. The Federal Emergency Management Agency that trains and provides support in case of natural disasters. And of course, the gutting of the health agencies within the government, and we saw how important they were during the pandemic. Well, frankly, in all my time, it is an administration that exceeds anything that I have seen in incompetence, hypocrisy, self-dealing, and turning backs on fundamental American values and the key government services that all of our citizens, regardless of your political views, rely on. But nonetheless, we have a city that will protect and defend everyone's right to express their views. Thank you.
Any other council requests? I had a suggestion in response to the accessibility survey that Mr. Mester talked about that I think it's getting some plugs on our newsletter. I think having learned from our East End small area planning where it's important for us to go to the people, I think this is a really good opportunity to actually consider yard signs or just signs out in the community where people are actually traversing. So instead of asking people, how's accessibility of our streets through email, like we should just ask people as they're on the street. And so consider yard signs or posters or something that people can scan a QR code and then take the survey while they're out there. I often think people who are on our streets are probably not the ones who are necessarily reading the focus. And so for us to consider more creative solutions where we go to the people instead of expecting people to come and find us.
Appreciate that. Also working with OCOM for flyers like at the farmer's market.
And I was going to suggest also entrances to our buildings. So if we want accessibility feedback coming into public buildings, to have them at the library, the community center, city hall, using stairs versus elevators, places where, there may be more sensitive places where people have accessibility challenges.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did have somewhere in my notes earlier also to work, I'm sure you already are, but with the schools, because there are organizations within the schools that focus on making sure that those with disabilities are able to learn, access, participate fully. And I think there might be some good connections to getting feedback from those in our community who would have the most input.
Certainly can do that. We've also reached out to Northern Virginia ARC, NAMI, Independence Center, Northern Virginia Resource Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and then some of our community groups like Chambers, VPAS, and so forth.
And even the Miller House. I mean, there are our residents who, access a lot of those services routinely. They and their caregivers who would be able to provide feedback about how well they can get around the city. Thanks, Letty.
I was going to give kudos for our new Hawk signals. So I've used them a lot just to test them out. But the new buttons don't even require pushing. Like I think waving in front of them actually activates them. So I think that's, whatever new standard that is terrific because many of the other ones require an actual pushing. And this one, I think you're just near it and it kind of the motion activates them. So.
And the Hawk signals got a lot of activity Saturday between 11 and 1. And the people were doing good, the pedestrians, the cars were learning, but it got a lot of good, effective use.
Great. Okay. With that, I think we're ready to move on to business on the agenda. Madam Clerk, can you call the first item, please?
Yes, we'll start out with our items requiring public hearings. And the first one is TO 25-08, ordinance to amend ordinance 2073 and Ordinance 2084 regarding the budget of expenditures and revenues and appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2025 General Fund, Stormwater Fund, School Operating Fund, School Community Service Fund, School Food Service Fund, and the Capital Improvement Program funds.
And Ms. Bawa, before you start, I think we have a disclosure to make.
City Council is discussing the FY25 budget amendment for the City of Falls Church. I'm an employee of the Falls Church City School Board, which may be affected by the proposed fiscal policies. As a result, I'm in a group of 3 or more people who may realize a reasonably foreseeable direct or indirect benefit from the proposed ordinance. After consideration, I am electing to participate in this transaction because I'm confident in my ability to participate fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
Good evening, Mayor Hardy and members of the council. Before you is the second reading of the last budget amendment in fiscal year 2025. There are no changes proposed in this budget amendment from the first reading on May 27th. And in short, pertaining to the general fund, on the general government side, we're not requesting the use of any general fund balances. On the school side, collectively between 3 funds, School Operating Fund and School Community Services Fund and the Food Services Fund, there's a request for appropriation of approximately $2.5 million, leaving a collective balance of $1.98. And this was previously presented at the last session. I'll stop there in case you have any questions.
Okay. Ms. Downs?
This is actually a comment. Thank you, first of all, Ms. Bawa, and I'm sorry that our time is running out with your great service, so thank you for everything. This is actually just a comment that I just wanted to sort of put out there that we could keep in mind for next year's budget. And this is directed to our city attorney and our city manager. I would like us to think about the possibility of maybe perhaps having, setting aside some money for a part-time paralegal. I feel like the city is growing and growing and growing, and I know that Ms. Gillette's shop is pretty much inundated. And I understand needing the outside counsel for some of the areas of very specific expertise, but I just wanted to sort of put that out there that maybe to think about a part-time paralegal to assist with the workflow, because I think it's not going to go away. It's, as we continue to grow and develop, and, we talked about Virginia Village and all that. Or just, for you to think, would that be something that could help? I just wanted to throw that out there. But thank you, and other than that, I think this all looks great. Thanks.
Other questions or comments on the budget amendment? Nope. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Snyder has his hand.
Sure, thanks. So for benefit of people, for the benefit of the public, so this is basically a revision within existing categories, movement of money. Is there another opportunity as more data comes in, or is this the last opportunity to look at this fiscal year?
The last opportunity to request the use of fiscal year 2025 funds, and you're right that on the general government side, we are moving money between departments. The only new money we're asking for is the Rec and Parks program fees, and that is supported by the revenue that they have already brought in over the budget for this year, and that's $159,000. We will look at the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting on Thursday next week. We will look at the revenues, general fund revenues. We do have a couple more months of data since we did the third quarter review in April. And after that, the next opportunity would be the year end. That would be discussed. The report would be brought to council the third week in September.
Right. I just wanted to make a comment that as we look at any other opportunities in the future, that we consider transportation funding at or near the top. Thank you very much.
So Ms. Bawa, you said that on the general government side, we're mainly moving money around between underspending buckets, but I think on the school side, they are appropriating $1.3 million in new expenditures, correct?
1.3 in operating fund and 861,000 in community services fund and 368,000 in food services fund. So overall appropriation request of 2.5 million for them, and leaving a balance of 1.98 million across those three funds on the school side.
So Mr. Snyder, there is new appropriations to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments on this one? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yes, I think we've talked about it several times, and hopefully we will again next week at the Budget and Finance kind of after-action report on this year's process, just that we have clear sight into fund balances within the school's budget and the general government budget, so that everybody understands what fund balances are carried over from year to year and what's going to be available at the end of next fiscal year, so that that everybody really understands each of those lines of finance. And then another plug for the, it was great that the state gave SOQ bonuses for our teachers, and then our school board voted for bonuses for all staff, not just SOQ staff, which is great. But that happened after we'd already voted on the general government staff increase in salary. So I just want to keep that in mind as we're looking at FY26, or if we had the good fortune of having increased revenues from the end of this year, which may or may not happen. I just want to keep that at front of mind as well on our list of things that we're looking at funding moving forward. That's it. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so I was going to plus one what Ms. Hiscott said about budget and finance. I think reviewing kind of where fund balances are, what the latest revenue picture, and then I think I mentioned this in the mayor's meeting, but given that a lot of the anxiety with this coming school year is not knowing exactly where enrollment would be with opening of several buildings, I think the schools asked for all returning parents to fill out their intent to return form early. And so if we have any early enrollment data, that would be helpful to know, like, are things coming in line with what our projections would be? Are they way off? I think any early information would be helpful just so that we can plan. That might be a good way to use our time together at the next budget and finance.
I will reach out to school staff.
Great. And I think as Ms. Down said, Karen, this is your last public meeting with us, or last large public meeting with us. We still have budget and finance with you. So I just wanted to at least say that you have led us through an incredible time of transformation for the city. I still remember when I was pretty new, we were debating between whether we were doing the full CIP or the partial CIP, and how much that kept me up at night personally. And you always saw us through such kind of a calm and really responsible way of kind of seeing us through that big investment for the city. And so we really appreciated all your work there. And on top of that, getting our first AAA bond rating, despite that really ambitious plan of financing. And now when you look around the city, I think it's the result of that work and that thoughtful plan of pulling off those generational investments is really a tribute to kind of all that effort you put in for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we'll celebrate you properly in the coming 2 weeks, but I know this is our last kind of council meeting with you tonight, so I wanted to express that, and I'm sure others up here may want to do the same. Yeah.
Yes, this is my only comment on this ordinance, is to thank you for this ordinance and every single other one you've done in your time here. As the mayor said, you shepherded us through a huge, huge change in the city of Falls Church, and your calm and your knowledge and your just ability to make it all make sense has been so helpful. So I also wore these earrings for you this evening. These are my zipper earrings.
Thank you.
because there has been so much change in the city, and you have been right at the forefront of it. And I can't thank you enough for your leadership and your calm demeanor through many, many storms and many late nights. Thank you.
That's the front I put. Then the rest of the non-com stuff happens at the back end. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Ms. Underhill.
I'm just going to say a very quick thank you, and I'm going to save the rest for when we have our budget and finance meeting.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, and since you're making a pattern of going back to where you came from, we'll be ready for you to come back here again, too, when you're done with California.
You
and
want me
wanna
to
come back
repeat the
East
pattern?
Coast.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, do we have a motion then, actually?
We have a public hearing.
Oh, yes. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? So I'm going to open the public hearing.
I don't have anybody who has signed up in advance.
Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
I move to adopt TO 25-08.
Second.
Ms. Downs on the second. Can you call roll, please?
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Downs,
Yes.
Ms. Shon-Siskot,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Ms. Underhill,
Yes.
Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, council.
Thank you, Ms. Bawa. Can you call the next item, please?
Yes, next we have TO 25-09, ordinance to increase the salaries of the City of Falls Church Mayor and City Council members effective July 1, 2026.
So this is an ordinance that's before City Council now for second reading and final consideration after a public hearing. What's before council is an ordinance that would increase salaries for City Council members from $11,000 per year to $16,000 per year, and for mayor from $11,500 per year to $17,000 per year. This would be effective July 1st, 2026. So not July 1st a couple weeks from now, but July 1st a year from now. The state law has a lot of provisions that govern how governing bodies set salaries for members of the governing body. This ordinance follows those state strictures. In the last year, the City Council, the State General Assembly did increase the thresholds, and so for a city of Falls Church's size, the upper limit for mayor is $22,000, and for city council is $21,000 per year. That's the state code provisions on that. At first reading, the city council chose to have a lower number than those state maximums. The fiscal impact of these salary increases, if they are enacted tonight, would be in total $39,100 per year. But that would commence not in the coming budget year, but in FY27, the following fiscal year. That's the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions. I don't know if the city attorney has anything to add on this, but she was very
Before we
helpful.
discuss, we need to read our disclosures again, so.
That's right.
And we start left to right. Ms. Downs.
The City Council is discussing tonight an ordinance that would increase the salaries of the mayor and council members effective July 1st, 2026. My term on council concludes this year. However, I may choose to seek another term, which, if successful, would cause me to have a personal interest in this ordinance. I have elected to participate in this transaction because I'm able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight an ordinance that would increase the salaries of the mayor and council members effective July 1st, 2026. My term on council concludes this year. However, I may choose to seek another term, which, if successful, would cause me to have a personal interest in this ordinance. I have elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight an ordinance that would increase the salaries of the mayor and council members effective July 1st, 2026. My term on council will conclude after July 1st, 2026, causing me to have a personal interest in this ordinance. However, I have elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight an ordinance that would increase the salaries of the mayor and council members effective July 1st, 2026. My term on council concludes this year. However, I may choose to seek another term, which, if successful, would cause me to have a personal interest in this ordinance. I have elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight an ordinance that would increase the salaries of the mayor and council members effective July 1st, 2026. My term on council will conclude after July 1st, 2026, causing me to have a personal interest in this ordinance. However, I've elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
Mr. Snyder.
Thank you. So my disclosure would be the same as Mary Beth Connolly's and others. My current term concludes December 31, but I may run and signal interest in running in the future, and that I believe that I can discuss and act on this issue in the public interest and not self-interest. Thank you.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion. Do we have council comments, questions before I open the public hearing? Ms. Unreal?
Just a quick question. So what we set it to right now during budget discussions, next year we can change it to be lower if needed, if budgetary reasons it works out differently.
I don't know the answer to that right now. So I can look into it and return to that later on in the discussion if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Can we just not appropriate money?
Yeah, in discussions with other, I'm not the lawyer here, so obviously we'll defer to Sally's, but in discussions with other jurisdictions, when talking about their salary changes, if their budgets tanked, they were talking about, well, we would remove our salaries before we remove that of those serving the public directly. I was under that, and like the question you just asked, I was under the impression that you could. You could say, this is the ceiling, but when discussing the budget next year, if this doesn't, we need to trim $39,000, to be someplace you could trim it.
Yeah, I would assume that you could just, as I've mentioned before, I don't take a salary, so I'm assuming we could just voluntarily say, cut my salary $5,000, whatever. I would assume that you could do that. And the only reason I bring that up is because even though I don't take a salary, I feel so strongly that this is really important because we, I 100% support people who do. This hopefully will attract more people. This might make it, people who have young children, or maybe they have an elderly relative they're caring for, what have you. This might just help enable them to logistically participate on council. So I think it really could broaden the number of residents who would consider this. So I am in support of this. I think I appreciate that we could have gone higher based on our population, and we didn't do that. We were a little bit more prudent, and we decided not to go the whole way that we could have. And but again, I do think that this salary will help support people on the council and encourage others to run. So I am supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
Sure, thanks very much. I appreciate the arguments that everyone is making, but I just feel that with everything going on with our citizens and the likelihood that that's going to continue, I just am not in a position to support even the possibility of our salaries, voting ourselves a salary increase in this environment. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I actually believe because of just that reason, the tough environment that we're in, that it's even more important to have more representation on city council, and that more people might need additional funds to cover expenses incurred for childcare or elderly care moving forward. So I'll probably be voting for it. If I voted no, it'd be for the opposite reason. It's for I would like to see us using more of the window that we're allowed by state code. So I feel strongly about that, but I do have a feeling that if it were the only thing that we could make a budget for, like I still don't think we're going to hit a 39,000 because not everybody takes the salary, but for those whom choose to run, it is an important decision, and it's part of the decision is how much time you give up for how much you can then have in compensation, whether that's benefits or a salary that will cover the costs incurred. So it's not a profit-making position. I think anybody who spends time up here is not doing it for a profit-seeking motivation. So I'm actually fully in favor of increasing the salaries to what we discussed at our last meeting, which was kind of the middle ground. Thank you.
Ms. Gillette.
Thank you. So I believe I have an answer to the question, and that is this ordinance does ordain that certain salaries, the salary be set the way it's described in the ordinance. The timing requirements that make this kind of an ordinance difficult to adopt only apply when you're increasing the salary. So if you wish to take a lower salary than the one that's in this ordinance, you would need to adopt another ordinance. And that's okay as long as the salaries being adopted are lower than those in this ordinance. And there would be no time constraints on that type of an ordinance because it would be decreasing the salaries.
So that would be something that we could do during the budget process next year if
Yes,
we needed. Okay,
that's right.
So we have that tool.
Thank you for quickly researching that. Any other council comments before I open the public hearing? Okay, do we have any public comments?
There is nobody signed up to speak.
Any members of the public? Oh, Mr. Snyder, you have your hand up again.
I don't, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Any members of the public wish to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'll move to adopt TO 25-09.
We have a second.
Second.
Underhill on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
No.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you, council.
We're at 10:05. Do we want to keep powering through, or do people need a break? We have benefits, ALP, and then changing site plan approval authority. Okay, we're going to hold to that then. Okay, let's call the next item then.
Thank you. We have TR 25-16, resolution establishing benefit eligibility of city council members.
We need to read disclosures for that, so before you jump in, we have a separate disclosures. You want to start this way, Ms. Underhill?
The City Council is discussing tonight a resolution that would establish employee benefits as available to the mayor and city council members effective immediately. I have personal interest in this resolution. However, I've elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight a resolution that would establish employee benefits as available to the mayor and council members effective immediately. I have a personal interest in this resolution. However, I've elected to participate in this transaction because I'm able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight a resolution that would establish employee benefits as available to the mayor and council members effective immediately. I have a personal interest in this resolution. However, I've elected to participate in this transaction because I'm able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight a resolution that would establish employee benefits as available to the mayor and city council members effective immediately. I have a personal interest in this resolution. However, I've elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
The City Council is discussing tonight a resolution that would establish employee benefits as available to the mayor and council members effective immediately. I have a personal interest in this resolution. However, I have elected to participate in this transaction because I am able to participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
Mr. Snyder?
Thank you. Again, it'll be the same disclosure as I think Mary Beth Conley, that I'm potentially, I could potentially benefit from this, but that I believe that I can pursue the issue in a fair manner and in the public interest. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, what's before council tonight is a resolution that would establish city council member eligibility for health insurance and other benefits that are afforded to city part-time term employees as allowed by Virginia code. So those benefits that are eligible for part-time term employees include health insurance, flexible spending accounts, disability insurance, life insurance, the employee assistance program, some other voluntary insurance plans where employees pay the premium, and those are the ones that are in the city's class plan eligible for part-time term employees. For permanent employees, the defined benefit pension plan and the defined contribution retirement savings plan are eligible to employees, but this resolution would kind of hold those separate, and only those initial benefits that I listed would be eligible for city council. There is some financial analysis of what the fiscal impact would be if city council members took sort of the most expensive of those benefits, and health insurance is kind of the main benefit from a fiscal impact perspective. And if every city council member took sort of the family coverage with the most expensive plan, that could have a potential fiscal impact of $148,000 per year. So that's a quick summary of what's before the city council, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has about this resolution.
Great. Do we have questions or comments since our work session discussion? I don't see any, just hands up. Did you?
That was glasses.
Just,
Was my.
I can speak briefly. Just any comments?
Yeah, I didn't know if
Sure.
you had your hand up.
No, I didn't, but I'm happy to talk because I did want to say something. When going through the city and talking to people and meeting people in apartment buildings and hosting civic boot camps and trying to ask people what it would take for them to run, two things frequently come up. One of them is raising money for a campaign is difficult and expensive, and then the other thing is time. And when it comes down to time, when I dig into that deeper, it ultimately does come down to money. And so, you know, we want a council that reflects our community, and so we want to make sure that people of all financial backgrounds are able to serve. And I strongly believe that healthcare benefits are one of those benefits that we as a city should be providing to our public servants. So I am strongly in favor of this proposal.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I too am in favor of this for the reasons discussed before, but also given the uncertainties in Medicare, Medicaid, health insurance, employability, federal and federally related jobs being cut. For those who are serving on council, to have this as a part-time employee benefit could be pretty key in some tumultuous years moving forward. So for that, amongst many reasons, I'm in support of providing the health insurance for comparable to part-time employees for the city.
Okay. I know we don't have to have a public hearing for this one, but given that we had one for, oh, Dave, you're back. Yes, you have your hand up, Mr. Snyder.
Yes, thanks. This is a significant amount of money, and I just feel that it should be deployed for the benefit of the public and not in this way. Thank you.
Okay, I was just going to open up for public comment, even though we're not required to for this one. Ms. Reagan.
Quick question. As a candidate, do I need to make a disclosure?
No, you're a member of the public, so.
No.
Okay. Just checking. I wanted to say, as somebody whose family goes through the marketplace, because my wife has her own company and has changed jobs several times, one of the challenges in our convoluted healthcare system today is healthcare churn. it is not a stable environment for anybody, no matter how stable their job is. I think people running, this will actually be something to attract people to running for council because it will provide a stability that people would not be able to find somewhere else. This is actually to their benefit. The stability, you win into city council, you have found stability for your health care for 4 years. That actually, I don't see it anywhere else out there. And so I'm definitely in favor of this proposal because I think it will attract more people, not for the fiscal, well, the fiscal piece will help, but it's the stability so that you know you will be able to have the health care to take care of your family over those 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. I agree with all the comments that have been made so far about supporting this. I think, in fact, I believe that this is actually maybe more important than the salary we just discussed. I personally believe that healthcare should be a universal human right, so I'm glad that hopefully we can adopt this for the city. May I have a motion then?
Mayor, I move to adopt TR 25-16.
We have a second.
Second.
It was Hiscott on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
No.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you, council.
Let's call the next item.
Yes, next we have resolution to designate the planning director as the city's designated agent for review and approval of site plan applications.
No, we have the ALP.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I skipped you. Sorry. Sorry, Brendan and Dana. Let's try this. We have TR 25-12, resolution to amend the City of Falls Church Comprehensive Plan to update Chapter 10, Housing a Complete Community, to add affordable living policy.
So what's before council tonight is a request to refer the affordable living policy formally to the Planning Commission for its review and recommendation as required by city code and by state law as an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan. Our staff report will be led by Brendan Woodley, our housing specialist, and he will give the report tonight. Our focus tonight really is going to be on updates that we've made to the comp plan amendment since your work session discussion. And so it won't be a full review of the comp plan amendment, but rather the changes since then. Mr. Woodley, thank you for your good work on this program, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Wyatt. The staff report you see here tonight is a follow-up to the May 19th council work session that seeks referral from this body to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will hold a work session Wednesday of this week, and a public hearing is tentative scheduled for July 16th. At the May 19th work session, council provided comments on the draft ALP that have since been addressed by staff. In your attachments to this staff report, we have supplied an updated version of that draft with those comments incorporated, as well as a red line that shows in exact detail what changes were made for each of those specific comments. I can actually now go through the rest of the staff report. We can switch back to staff report and kind of go through some of the changes that I've noted on there. If we go down to line 52 of the staff report, we added a paragraph that notes the community information session that we held at Winter Hill on May 29th. This was a great session. We had an opportunity to kind of go out and speak with a lot of the members of the Winter Hill community about what's going on with the affordable living policy, including just kind of describing the process in detail. And more specifically, we actually got language translation services, and we got to tell them what some of the updates were and what goes into the process for this. And also, this was actually in response to a request for more community input and more community awareness of this document. Part of the process also includes some advertisement in the Falls Church News Press for any comprehensive plan. So I think that'll also be a good kind of a supplement to just making sure that the community writ large is more aware of what's going into this affordable living policy and the fact that it's actually taking place. If we scroll down to goal 2, thank you. Goal 2, one of the comments was to make sure it's noted as a stretch goal, so staff satisfied that request. Goal 3, actually, this was noted actually in the actual document in the draft. You'll see that it is an actual revised to a priority goal that wasn't captured here in the staff report, but we did make some changes to the verbiage of this goal to make sure that it was more clear what the purpose of it was. If we go down to goal 7, this goal was reworded a little bit for clarity. I think there were some questions from the council on how it was phrased. Goal 8, you'll see we added a note for cottage housing to make sure that it was called out per request. And the purpose of this line was just to make sure that it had some examples of what that spectrum looked like, but it's really supposed to include all types of housing here. And then on if you go down to goal 17, this goal I think had a couple comments. So we kind of revised the wording of it to make it a little bit more clear. We noted it as a stretch goal. And make sure that it was in consideration of other city funding obligations as well. So there's some wording changes there. It's still kind of the same structure of the request, and again, it is a little bit less direct in saying that it is a stretch goal. If we go down a little bit farther to the fiscal impact section, thank you. We revised this section a little bit so that it was a little more clear what the funding requirements would be should this motion be adopted. And then if we go down a little bit farther to the bottom of the timing section, finally we just made sure we went ahead and added some of those community sessions. I know that was a concern that we included, and just to kind of touch on the kind of follow-up plan. Again, Planning Commission this Wednesday, and then a hearing scheduled for July 16. And then we're going to have a follow-up council work session in the first week of August. And then that second week of August, all things considered, hopefully we'll be doing a final public hearing and an adoption of this policy. So with that, I'll go ahead and pause there and take any questions or comments, or if anyone else has anything they'd like to add, Dana or Wyatt.
Okay. Any council comments or questions? Ms. Connolly.
Thank you for all the work on this. I've seen some really good changes since the first or second time that we saw it. So thank you for really shaping it into something that has some, reasonable goals and stretch goals as well. I'm wondering if it makes sense to change this to a 2025 affordable living policy, because it's not going to be finally approved until well into 2025. If it's 2024, then we're going to have to start it again in 4 years, as opposed to having.
I agree.
Okay.
This is actually we started this process in 2023, actually, with the hope of finishing it a year ago. It's taken way longer than we expected, but it's kind of bloomed. It's really grown and developed in the process, and we've learned a lot. So happy to make it a 2025. I think I like multiples of 5 anyway. So unless we have objections, I'm happy to make that change.
I don't see objections up here, so we can go ahead with that. Yeah,
I just wanted to add something. It's interesting that earlier today I was reading Arlington Now actually did an article based on the press release from our own home stretch. And I just wanted to read this one. I think it's so timely that we're talking about this now. In the paragraph that I'll just quote from Arlington Now, the numbers paint a stark picture. Workers need to earn $38.73 per hour just to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Falls Church, more than 5 times the federal minimum wage. So I thought that was so interesting and timely that came out today as we're discussing this. And, I know that everyone's been working on this far before I came on to council, and I just want to say that I support it and thank everyone for their work on this.
Mr. Snyder, your hand up?
Absolutely.
Sure, thank you very much. I think this is a really well-done report at this point. It strikes, in my view, an appropriate balance between goals and financial realities and takes into account the need to be flexible as we go forward in implementing it. I hope that balance is not upset in anything that occurs since then. So I'm very pleased to vote for it, and I want to thank everybody involved.
Thank you.
And to be clear, tonight is a referral to the Planning Commission, and our final adoption will come at our August 11th meeting once we hear back from their recommendations. So
I move to make a motion.
Yep, please go ahead.
We can discuss further based upon Planning Commission. So I move to refer TR 25-12 to the Planning Commission, schedule second reading and public hearing for August 11th, and advertise the same according to law.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is Connolly in the second? Call roll, please.
Just a quick question, Madam Mayor. Does that include the change to 2025?
Can staff make that change, or do we need to make that in the motion?
Is that a typographical change?
Is that in the motion? Then I just wanted to make sure. I thought that was a good comment.
I think what we would say is the next time you'll see this, when it comes back from the Planning Commission, we'll change it to 25. I don't think a motion from council is necessary at this point.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead with roll, please.
Thank you. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shawn-Siskod?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, council.
Okay. We look forward to seeing you all back in August.
Thank you.
Likewise.
And Mr. Fuller, we are ready for you
And now we have TR 25-15, resolution to designate the planning director as the city's designated agent for review and approval of site plan applications.
And our interim planning director, Mr. Gary Fuller, will give the report on this.
Mayor Hardy and members of council, Gary Fuller. So this was a work session on June 2nd, so we had a briefing discussion on that. And as you're aware, the state code has changed, and planning commission is to act on site plans effective in 2 weeks first. So this is the initial resolution that will have a designated agent, including Virginia designated agents are the planning director, the zone administrator, and so forth. And so the recommendation before you tonight is to designate the planning director as a designated agent, and then the staff would present an ordinance in July that would modify changes in both designated agent and planning change. So the extent of the change would be really, from a broad standpoint, all the things that are going to go over the development of planning. But the scope is very limited to just designated agent and planning change. 45 days. So it's really simple that scope. During the ordinance review, which was going to fall for a final action, the deputy agent with the planning director, so we could address site plan planning and agent. During that process, if there's any reason to want to reconsider that, that would be part of that process. But
now, we just need a designated agent so we can have effectively site plan authority to act on site plan. So that's what I'm for.
Mr. Fuller, is your mic on or is it just quiet over there as well?
It was off. I'm sorry. Yes. Nobody said anything. Okay. Well, I will just recap to say that the state code changed and that I'm before you tonight for a designated agent to be designated by the council. So the planning director is recommended by staff, and so we would recommend adoption of TR 2515. So we would have that in effect by July 1 to address any site plans. We do have one site plan that's pending at this point that's been with us for months, and so, but no new ones that we're aware of at this point. So thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council since we discussed this in work session? Oh, Dave, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just to reiterate, a little bit of the discussion at the work session. So this is basically, we have to do this under state code. And, but I think the search will be on to see how we can have as much planning commission or public participation as possible. And that will come out in any succeeding ordinance. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. As a parallel piece of the ordinance work that would initiate on July 14th, we would be looking at an advisory capacity option for the Planning Commission within the 45-day period to be able to hold a public hearing potentially and provide recommendations to the planning director. The other part would be the waiver provisions that are delegated from the Planning Commission to the planning director during any time that the planning director is responsible for site plans currently in our code. That would also be available to the planning director, and we're developing some additional criteria for that that would be part of the discussion in July and the initiation.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Any others? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move to adopt DR 25-15.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Downs on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Gary, as we talked about in the work session, I know that we only have one site plan, but I think if we have more in the queue that ends up getting kind of backed up, I think it'd be helpful for us to track and be able to provide data back to the General Assembly that if the intended legislation doesn't actually help us and actually hurts us because we end up having, too many site plans and then can't review them up in time in that shorter window, and we end up rejecting them that probably does not have the intended legislative impact they were hoping.
Yes, I would agree, and we'll be willing to track that, including this one and any of those in the next fiscal year.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for adjusting to the changes. Okay, I think we're moving on to consent. I think we saw both of these items. We have appointments and then two things that we saw, I think, in work session.
Madam Mayor, if I might, I'll be abstaining from the insurance one just to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. That's number one under the consent item. So I may ask that be removed purely for that purpose.
Okay, Mr. Snyder would like to pull off TR 25-13 out of consent so we can vote on that separately.
Can you pull that one up, TR 25? Yeah, we're going to.
Should we tackle that one first then? Can we pull up the motion? Okay,
Yeah,
we have it up.
I move to adopt TR 25-13.
Second.
Ms. Connolly in the second. Can you call roll, please?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Abstain.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0 with one abstention. Thank you.
Okay, that leaves the body-worn camera item and appointments left on consent.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Scott on the second. Call roll.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscod?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
We do
Thanks
have
to our appointments, folks. By the way, we had a big crew and lots of new names, so thank you.
I will just say that it is unbelievably humbling to interview the people that are applying because they are so qualified and really bring some great benefit to our city.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all.
Okay, we have two items in other business, one of which is tied to consent, and the other is our leaf vacuum.
Yes, and these items weren't on consent because they weren't seen by the council previously at a work session. So the first one is authorize the purchasing agent on behalf of the city to award up to $250,000 per fiscal year in a contract with Infrastructure Solutions Group for the heavy equipment procurement program.
So for this item, back in 2024, the city council approved actually a contract for $350,000 to purchase two new leaf vacuum vehicles. We are not able to proceed with that vendor after going down the path with them for quite a long ways. So we're now shifting to a trailer pulled solution. It is a lower price. It will do a great job for us. And so the request is for a contract authorization with a new vendor in the amount of $250,000. And the draft motion is what is requested for the council to take action on tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Underhill.
I was just wondering, is it a lower quality vacuum or what led to the?
The earlier idea was to have a chassis associated with the vacuum, so it would be a full vehicle with a vacuum attached. This is going to be a trailer that's pulled behind one of our other trucks, and so the vacuum quality will be just as good. It's just a different way of moving it through the city.
Okay, so it sounds like it's something that could be attached or detached from a truck, and so it's sort of, I guess, saving space and costs.
And saving having to buy another vehicle with an internal combustion engine in it.
Great, okay. Well, I guess that sounds like a win-win-win.
Does it still have the positive impact for the employees who are walking behind that truck?
It's a little
If it's
harder to
not-
maneuver, so we still have some trucks that can get into some of our tighter cul-de-sacs. You know, when you're doing a tow-behind trailer, it's just a longer situation, and so that will work best on long streets and not work as well on tight cul-de-sacs. I'm speaking a little bit like I know a whole lot what I'm talking about, but I've been out there with the crews and see how they've operate them, and that's my impression. That's one operational issue.
Okay, other questions or comments? It's glad to see it was $100,000 less. I guess what would be a win-win-win-win is actually if more people leave their leaves and we have less to vacuum.
I think every time we mention the leaf program, we should always plug people mulching the leaves in situ in their lawn and taking advantage of that great natural resource in place.
Great. Do we have a motion then?
Mayor, I move to authorize the purchasing agent on behalf of the city to award up to $250,000 per fiscal year in a contract with the Infrastructure Solutions Group for the heavy equipment procurement program.
Do we have a second?
A second.
It's Underhill in the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscod?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. And ready for the next item?
Yes, please.
And this is regarding appointments. It's a resolution, TR 25-22, to allow Edwin B. Henderson II to serve on both the Historical Commission and the City Employee Review Board. And this is as required by a council resolution.
Any questions or comments?
I guess just confirming that if this name has come forward, appointments is already reviewed and finds Mr. Henderson to be the best candidate for the job, so I'd be in support of it.
In fact, we just appointed him
Yes.
in the consent agenda.
Moments ago.
It's funny.
Right. So this should have been
I'd
before
like to
that.
move approval on PR 25-22.
I'll second.
It's Underhill on the second, and Snyder on
It's
the motion.
Underhill?
It's Underhill on the second, and Snyder on the motion. And call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Shunsiskott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, council.
We thank Mr. Henderson for serving us in multiple ways.
Yes.
Okay, any business not on the agenda? We don't have a mayor's meeting on Wednesday because we don't have a meeting the following Monday, but is there anything on schedule or things we need to talk about?
I'll just say briefly, there's no real changes to the schedule since the last mayor's meeting, so there's no kind of big switches there.
Just the discussion on council salaries and benefits brought to my mind that we got a request from the Planning Commission about their salaries. Is there, at some point, can we add that to the agenda to take up, to discuss?
It's scheduled for your July 7th work
Oh,
session.
everything's on July 7th. Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
July 7th, big night.
Do we have a June 30th meeting?
We do not.
We do not. Okay, so our next meeting is July 7th. Thanks.
There were 2 meetings in June, 2 in July, and 2 in August, so. Great.
Our next meeting is July 7.
Go ahead.
I just had one anecdote I wanted to share because I thought it was interesting after spending years on talking about transition zones. I had a meeting with a Mount Daniel teacher last week on another topic altogether who relayed that she and her husband and 12-year-old child are some of the first to purchase the new townhomes on Park and Oak. So this is an individual who's been renting in the City of Falls Church for 8 years and been teaching in the City of Falls Church for 8 years and been looking for a house, couldn't afford one. And so as soon as these townhouses came available, got on there, purchased the first one. So now she'll be able to continue to walk to work, her child will be able to walk to school, and we'll retain our teaching staff in the city. So I just thought that was a really fun conversation to have and wanted to share. I asked if I could share that information with the rest of council, and she said, of course, we're so excited. So we'll move in the fall, and that's just moving as we had hoped with, from an apartment to a townhouse and into home ownership. So just want to share that tidbit. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Any other council comments or standing regional board commission reports? Okay. And we don't have minutes tonight, so I think we'll take care of that also July 7th. Okay.
Can I just thank Taya for, we were struggling with sound at the beginning of the meeting, and she was so calm, cool, and collected, and we got it going. It was super. Thank you, Taya.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Well, I think we're adjourned then. Good night, all.
All right. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.